I've been watching all these people. Oh, hey Larry. Anybody qualified? He was that. He was our teacher. No choice. It has to be. But we do the free.
Go ahead and call it to order regular monthly meeting of Grayson County Board of Supervisors. Would ask that you please rise for the invocation. Father, thank you for the day that has been given here in this great county that we enjoy living in. Pray that you be with each one of our board members in tonight's meeting. Guide our thoughts. Thank you for the display of citizenry that we have here tonight. We're glad we have interest in what's going on in Grayson County. We pray that you be with us, for it's in your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It may take a little bit longer than I usually do with going over the quorum, because I want to try to get us to the point at 6:05 so we can officially start our public hearing. I'd like to remind everybody that the behavior during our all official meetings shall be consistent with behavior exercised in any court or legislative room found within the Commonwealth of Virginia. And there shall be no outbursts, bullying, heckling, or other forms of disrespectful behavior by any individuals present within these chambers. Persons wishing to speak shall do so respectfully and in accordance with applicable rules of procedure and or specific direction of the presiding official. And out of respect for the official business being conducted, for those conducting the official business and for those present for the same purpose, there shall be no private conversations taking place in the audience or other forms of disruptive behavior or nuisance. And please turn off cell phones and other such devices before entering these chambers. And after saying all that, I would like to say we're very welcome to have everyone here tonight and have a really good turnout on this issue. Each board member has been has a copy of the agenda and the consent agenda. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to accept the agenda and the consent agenda. Motion first, seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye. 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 Any opposed? 5-0. That's quick. 4-0, yes. That's right. Well, Mr. Ivy.
And we will be having a public hearing tonight. We're on time, so okay. Yeah, 6:05. Entertain a motion to go into public hearing to receive public comment on the adoption of the proposed ordinance entitled Ordinance Redistricting Grayson County to establish boundary lines for each election district, to name each election district, to provide for election precincts in which polling places in each election precinct. And the proposed changes are being considered as a result of the 2020 decennial census and in accordance with Virginia Code Sections 24.2-125 and 24.2-311.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to go into public hearing as stated.
Okay, Mr. Anderson, do I have a second? Second. Mr. Fan?
Recording in progress.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Aye also. Okay, first, before, you want to read the proposed ordinance? Okay. Right. The first page. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would just do section 2. Okay.
I could summarize it with that.
Yes. If you look in this place.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the board's direction, we prepared and advertised for a public hearing tonight an ordinance which would rebalance the electoral districts within Grayson County in order to comply with the requirements of Virginia law and the United States Constitution. As proposed, or as advertised, the electoral boundaries would not change in the vast majority of the county, except with the changes proposed to the Wilson district and the Elk Creek district. This is due to population shifts over the past 10 years. This is a process we do every 10 years. It's been delayed by almost a year due to the coronavirus pandemic, which delayed data coming from the Census Bureau, which delayed redistricting for the Commonwealth of Virginia, and it just sort of all rolled down to us at the local level. However, despite those delays, this is a process we undertake every 10 years. Due to shifts in population, what we saw was that the Elk Creek district was out of balance as far as population, much larger than what is the target. The Western district or Wilson district was lower. So as proposed, we would move the boundary line of the Western district towards Independence to rebalance the populations and get within the acceptable margin of difference amongst the various election districts. Based on feedback received from the public after advertisement, we've also submitted ordinances which would, well, I'm sorry, before I get to that point, let me complete the discussion of the original ordinance as advertised. In addition to those election district changes, it also proposes to reduce the number of voting precincts within the county and the number of polling places within the county. Based on feedback received by some members of the board and administration after advertising We have also prepared an option for the Board of Supervisors to enact the redistricting or without changing the precincts, without eliminating any of the precincts or polling places. So that is a draft ordinance that is before you for your consideration. In my view, because we've advertised more changes, you can always enact less changes. So that is an option before the board as well. I'd be happy to address any questions. Otherwise, I'll hand it to you, Mr.
I have one question,
Mr. Chair.
yes, sir. So the redistricting, we understand, we've already passed that, so we can stay in compliance with the state law. So should there have been a public hearing for that matter, or is that not an option?
So the Code of Virginia gives you two alternatives, and it's mostly based on the amount of time you have. If we received the census data in a more timely manner in our normal course, I would have recommended that we hold the public hearing process. You advertise for 45 days, you accept public comment for 30 days, and you have one or more public hearings before adopting the ordinance. That's one track. Due to the time constraints, what the track that we're following is to submit an application for pre-clearance to the Attorney General of Virginia's office, and we've done that. And that does not require a public hearing other than the public hearing that's required to adopt any ordinance within the county. So those are the differences. If we have more time, or if there is interest to take up other precinct changes or things of that nature going forward, you'll have more opportunity to have a full engagement with the public along the 45 to 30-day process, if that's the way the board would like to go.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Fain?
So just so I'm clear, we've really got two issues. One, that the redistricting that takes the Commonwealth Attorney General's kind of approval. And then you've got the polling station precinct issue, which is really under our control. The naming and the number of polling stations is really under our control. How many we have, when we change them, all that sort of stuff. Is that fair?
Generally, as long as you're otherwise complying with the Voting Rights Act, you're not doing it with any sort of discriminatory effect. It is up to you, as long as you, and as long as you've got a minimum number of polling places and precincts to give the public a fair chance to vote.
Right.
But within those guide rails, yes, that's a process that's up to you. As far as redistricting, to get each election district within an acceptable margin of variance, that's something that's required. We must do that.
Right. So the redistricting thing, we're going to do it. It's done for 10 years until we do it again after the next census. Is that accurate?
Exactly.
And then the polling station thing can come up again based on, over time, things change, having trouble finding workers, whatever, comes up. We have the ability for that issue to come back before the board, do another public hearing, talk about it, come up with other options, and either add or subtract or keep the same, whatever, over the next how many ever times we need to do it based on the changes. Because that's under local control.
You can make those changes every year, as long as you're not doing it within, I think, 60 days of the election, you're fine.
Right. And the naming is up to us as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just be,
No one cares. I mean, we care, but I mean, no one up above us.
that's right.
The Attorney General's not going, I don't know, I don't really like Western District. I prefer.
The buck stops with you all,
Yeah,
as far as the
that's right.
naming of elections.
All right, so they can keep their beady eyes right on us. Okay, good.
Yes.
Good to know we have control over a few things.
There's a lot of unfunded mandates out there.
Unfunded mandates, that's where I was going with it. Yeah, that's all right.
Thank you.
Okay, and I think Ms. Sarah Osmond. Prior to the, and one thing with anyone who is here to talk on during the public hearing, if you know you're with a group that is of like mind or speaking to the same point, in the interest of saving time, or if you wish, you can appoint a spokesman for your group, if that's is your wish. And then also, if anybody is here to speak and you haven't registered yet, please do register to speak, okay? That's all.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Sarah Osborne, Chair of the Grayson County Electoral Board. In keeping with all the duties and regulations of providing fair and secure elections in Grayson County, our nonpartisan board, along with our registrar, have recommended these precinct changes, in addition to state mandated redistricting, as Mr. Durban explained. We've made these recommendations simultaneously in order to reduce confusion for voters, as well to avoid mailing multiple notices to the voters, thus also reducing costs to taxpayers. Many factors were taken into consideration, especially cost, security, and staffing. We truly appreciate all of the thoughtful comments and feedback we have received and have developed 2 additional options for precinct changes. In my 8 years with this board, this is the most excitement and attention our little office in the basement has received, and it's great to see this level of participation. The precincts for Grayson County have remained the same for as long as anyone can remember. However, the rules and requirements for conducting elections have changed dramatically. This book is all of the Virginia code pertaining to elections that our board and officers are bound by oath to follow. And they change with every legislative session. These mandates no longer come with funding attached. For example, in 2017, the use of optical scan voting equipment became a requirement for all localities at a cost to Grayson County of $136,000. Along with that equipment comes thousands of dollars in software and hardware maintenance, ballot printing, and testing. We anticipate a legislative requirement in the upcoming years to begin using electronic poll books in all precincts. The purchase of this equipment is currently at the cost of around $3,000 per precinct. Another budgetary consideration is the per voter cost for each election. The total election day cost of conducting low turnout primary elections is very close to the total cost of high turnout November general elections. In 2021, only 2% of registered voters participated in the June primary election, with close to 50% turnout in the November general election. And the difference in cost between these 2 elections was only $5,000. This figure does not include an additional $5,000 to staff early voting and pre and post processing of mail-in ballots for each of those elections. Some expenses that could be eliminated and reduced with our proposed changes include facility rental fees, fuel costs, and vendor expenses for per election data processing fees. Operating 15 precincts with continually increasing costs is unsustainable. We are trying to be proactive instead of reactive and want to be good stewards of your taxpayer dollars. Election day staffing is the second critical issue we must consider. We have wonderful officers of election, some of whom have served this county for so long they can't remember when they started, Evelyn. But like other civic activities and organizations, fire, rescue, VFW, we are losing these people. And there seems to be fewer citizens who are willing to serve in their place. Some of our most dedicated OEs are unable to work the 15+ hour days any longer. Even with ongoing recruitment, we consistently find ourselves with only the minimum number of qualified officers on election day and no alternates. At busy precincts, this means officers have to rush to eat and restroom breaks can be few and far between. If an officer becomes ill or has an emergency, we don't have a list of individuals to step in. We want to be able to offer our OEs a better work environment, and in doing so, hopefully retain these folks for years to come. We are prepared to offer split shifts if we have enough officers for each precinct to do so. I'm going to send a notepad around, and if anyone here is willing tonight to serve as an officer of election, please give us your information and you will hear from us. The Virginia Department of Elections, as well as the federal government, maintains certain security requirements, one of which is constant communication with each precinct on election day. Some of our most remote precincts don't have reliable cell or landline phone service. This could be disastrous in an emergency situation. Keeping our election officers and voter safety in mind is at the forefront of election planning. We believe these precinct changes will offer better access to communication, as well as more centralized and easier to access locations. As an alternative, Ms. Revis is working with the Emergency Services Department on obtaining satellite phones that could be used on election day. The right to vote is paramount to every registered voter. It is our duty as a nonpartisan board and registrar to ensure the citizens of Grayson County are able to exercise that right while adhering to all state and federal guidelines and maintaining fiscal responsibility to you, the taxpayers. We have heard many comments about the added hardship of driving farther to vote on election day and the potential for a decrease in voter participation. These are valid concerns. We now have more options for voting than ever before. In 2020, we were mandated to provide 45 days of early voting, which is easily accessible here in the courthouse on weekdays and the last 2 Saturdays before each election. There is also secure mail-in voting with good instructions and any necessary help, only a phone call away. Change is hard. These choices are hard. But we hope that you all agree that confidently filling in that oval on the ballot is the most important act in our free democracy, not where or how we do it. Thank you. And we're happy to answer any questions, and our office is always open. We're always available.
Ms. Alder?
Yeah.
Since we're going to recruit potential, I think that's an excellent idea while you're here, because you got all the conservative.
Yes.
Could you just speak to that a little bit, what that involves, what that
Sure.
pays currently and could potentially change?
Sure, absolutely. So each of our officers election must have a state mandated training every year. We provide the training. You're paid for your mileage to that training. I think are we at $150 for officers? $150 to work as an election officer. It is a long day. You're required to be there at 5, and most of the time we don't get out of there until after 9, depending on what kind of election it is. We are, as I said, thinking about trying to do split shifts where we could have some officers for one half of the day and then switch and have other officers for the other half of the day. Just being able to communicate clearly and follow the directions that we give you and willing to serve under oath is, basically all the fun. And be a registered voter in the county.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Alder, would you like to speak to this option 3 and option 6 that
Sure.
you presented to us?
Absolutely. So the option 3 would make a precinct for Flat Ridge and Comer's Rock combined. You would still have all the other, our Western District would have a Mount Rogers precinct, a Grant precinct, combined Flat Ridge and Comer's Rock to be located in Comer's Rock, and then Bridle Creek. And then also over on the eastern end, maintain a Freeze precinct and a Providence precinct. That would be one of the other options that we have come up with.
That was number 3.
That was number 3. The other one, it says option 6 on your paper, would be doing the Flat Ridge Comer's Rock precinct, but still removing Freeze.
Quick question, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
the folks that's moving out of the Elm Creek district into the Wilson district, as it stands now, where would they vote?
Rattle Creek.
No changes. So they've got to go to Bridle Creek. They don't have the option to go to the Comer's Rock area, and some of them are right.
No, I believe we have drawn
A lot closer.
Yep. to go to Bridle Creek.
Can that be changed?
To go to Comer's Rock,
A
I
lot of
think it
folks,
was,
yeah, on the Big Ridge are actually probably closer to Comer's Rock than they
Right.
are Bridle Creek.
I understand. I think what we came up with was there was no clear boundary anywhere else. Is that right in that particular?
We can look at it again, but that's the issue, that to break it out, it would have to have a clearly defined and clearly observable boundary. And where it's that mountain range, that might be tricky to do, but we can look at that.
That seems like that would make better sense for those folks on the top half of that
Yeah,
section
we
that's getting moved.
get stuck with geography a lot.
Right.
We have a big, our mountain range runs right through here, so.
On the, you mentioned about the 150, that's every day they work, right? $150.
That's for election day.
It's just for election day, so the training and all the other stuff involved, that's not compensated for,
Yes.
it is compensated.
Training and mileage.
The 150 includes the training time and election day, but then they get mileage for coming to training, and precinct chiefs, when they drop off equipment and pick up, they get paid for mileage on that as well.
Okay, and then the 150, that amount is determined by who?
Us.
Yeah.
Because in
And
the
we
state,
have the ability to flex that based on.
we can. Code, only, the rate in code is $75.
Yeah.
So we have exceeded that, and we have tried to keep up with inflation with our payment, but, it comes down to not having the people, we're willing to pay the people, but we don't
Yeah,
have.
we got a demographic issue we're up against, but in the short term, the increase in, that might be an incentive to help get more people involved. Okay, so that also is under our.
Mr. Chair, I'm not real clear. So they get paid separately for the training?
No, they get paid $150 for the training and for their work on election day. They also get compensated mileage for that.
How
And the
many hours
training
of
is only a couple hours once a year. And before COVID, we used to provide a big meal for everybody, and that's kind of.
So we might could look at giving a little more incentive for the training, I guess, if we've got some flexibility to. Because I think the big thing I'm hearing from you folks is you need help. And that might solve some.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and I will remind each speaker that you are limited to 2 minutes, or 3 minutes. I was gonna, I'm gonna kick it. All right, Mr. Larry Bolt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, board members. Thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. I've already written a letter to many of you all expressing my views on the matter, and sort of word got out on how I felt, and people started asking me if I would speak for them. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be one of those spokespersons tonight. A lot of people don't like getting in front of people to speak, and some do not like driving at night to get out, so that's what I'm doing. And I have a list here of 126 names that I've been asked to represent. So when I say we, I'm talking about myself and 126 other people. And
There is one thing, I guess just a matter of record, that you are a Grayson County resident, address.
yeah, my address 853 Big Ridge Road, in Phoenix, Virginia, Grayson County resident. And
Can we verify that?
I believe we'd be on camera.
Can we have this time?
Stacy, we're good.
Appreciate
Okay.
All right.
I need a few seconds. And I
We'll give you some
may be like
We'll give you
15
some
seconds over anyway, but I thought maybe I'd get ready to play. And what I was gonna say about my list of things, I put very minimal effort into this. I could easily have doubled or tripled it if I went out and worked on it. But here's our thoughts. We understand that the redistricting must be done to satisfy state regulations. However, we are opposed to the elimination of 7 of our 15 physical election precincts. We feel that this will lead to a fewer number of citizens voting. And I don't believe any of us wants that. It will create hardships for many of our people. We should always look for ways to make it easier, legal, but easier to vote, not harder for our citizens to vote. Reduction in voting precincts, I feel, will specifically impact our senior citizens in a negative way. We understand that there would be savings to taxpayers' dollars if this happens, and savings taxpayer dollars is a great thing. But I think you need to ask yourself, is it worth it to cause this huge disruption that's going to be for many of our citizens? The dollar amount saved compared to the whole county budget is a very minuscule amount. And we understand that there's other ways to vote, 45 days early in-person voting and absentee ballots. But the simple fact of the matter is this will lead to a whole lot of people simply not voting. As far as the name changes for the district goes, let's leave them alone as well. From a historical perspective, we've always had Wilson, Elk Creek, Providence, and Old Town. If some of our new folks that move in here has trouble with them, I'd say let's just try to educate them a little bit better. If the names are changed, I understand it would solve the problem about the Old Town precinct not voting in the Old Town district. At the same time, it would create some new issues. For example, I'm pretty sure the folks in Comer's Rock don't think that they live in the western part of the county. So in summary, we are asking you as Grayson County Board of Supervisor members to do the right thing and leave all the precincts, 15 fiscal precincts open and leave the names alone. And one more thing that really hasn't been brought up in any of these discussions is that the redistricting and the moving of district lines, we're only talking about the voting districts. It has absolutely nothing to do with our magisterial districts or our land districts. The land is not moving to another district. If you have land in the Elk Creek district, for example, and you get moved to the Wilson district, your land stays in the Elk Creek district. All our recorded deeds refer to the land being in one of our 4 magisterial districts, and that will change. Can you imagine what a nightmare that would be for people if that changed and title search and lawyers and everything? So your deeds have always said you're in this district. That changes. This has nothing to do with that. And by the way, the names of our magisterial districts are Wilson, Elk Creek, Old Town, and Providence. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and not just for myself, but for all the others as well. Thanks, Larry.
Thanks, Larry. Okay, next is Linda Wright. Just state your name and address.
I am Linda Cornett Wright, 1800 Katy Sage Road, Elk Creek, Virginia. And I am here at the Commerce Rock precinct, and I have had the honor to do that job for 40 years. I'd like to say I was 2 when I started, but that was not the My grandmother served her community as an election official, as did my father at Crossroads. He also served his community at Grant and later in the Elk Creek precinct. The day Lasco Sims came to my home and asked me if I would consider doing this job, I didn't think twice. I was beyond honored to be allowed to serve in this capacity. As my son became an adult, he decided to serve his community as a volunteer firefighter. And he also joined me at Congress Rock as an election official. I feel this is a family legacy that I hope continues on to his sons. Our precinct is comprised largely of an aging population. If this change is made, it will force our voters to drive 45 minutes to Grayson Highlands to cast their vote. Election day is one sure opportunity to exercise our rights to express our opinions, and is one of our historical events that our country was founded on. To vote absentee or make the trip to the courthouse to vote is likely to be intimidating and will cause us to lose valuable voters who are unable or uncomfortable with this process. This would infringe on their constitutional right to vote. If communication is an issue, and we are the one that has no cell phone signal, and the new infrastructure coming to our area should help solve that problem. In the meantime, we are willing as a group to add a landline to the Commerce Rock precinct if there's no other solution available. The issue of expense was also important, but for the people of our community to exercise their voting privileges and responsibilities, we need to be ahead. We need to put the voters ahead of the expense. Most poll workers are sacrificing a day of their regular job to do a much lower paying job. It's a very extensive day and is a service to your community. Primaries are an expensive issue. Any political party that feels they need a primary for a decision, that party should incur the expense for the cost of that day. The county should not be held financially responsible for that. Most primaries could be decided in a caucus. In conclusion, this community and surrounding communities will suffer voter hardship if our precincts are closed. As a community, we respectfully request that you find a different financial solution without sacrificing our voters. And I thank you. And I am representing Common Rock, part of my people are out.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your 40 years. That's all.
I was too when I started.
Thank you very much. Okay, I have Kathy Fowler.
Yes.
You will be spoken. Or you will be spoken. Ms. Gatcher.
Sorry, Mr.
You're fine. Just, state your name and address.
Joanne Gunner, I live at 214 Hampton Street, Bruce. And I'm here to represent the citizens of Bruce. And I have here a letter that I had already presented to you all, which I'm going to read, and I have 201 signatures on the petition that the citizens of Bruce have signed, requesting not to move back to precinct out of town. So I am a member of the Bruce County Council, and I strongly oppose your decision to close the voting precinct in Town Creek. Bruce is a key center of the population for voters in this district. It would be a major issue for our citizens to lose their voting location. The town is made up mostly of senior citizens, which everyone knows. So opposing this precinct would create an unnecessary hardship for them and will also affect the voter turnout for the entire precinct. I have spoken with several of our citizens, and they are in disbelief that you have chosen to do this. Many of our citizens no longer drive in Bruce. So due to the close proximity of the houses, several citizens have the privilege of walking to Bruce School to vote, which they enjoy, and it is very convenient for them. I have been told several times that since they will not be able to get to Providence to vote, they simply won't vote. Is this something that the county really wants? With the redistricting that has occurred, the Providence district now, the northeastern district, has the largest population of the district with 3,738 citizens. Having only one voting location for over 3,700 citizens is totally unacceptable. The other districts have 2 or 3 voting locations with less population, and how does that make sense? With today's economy, I understand the need to cut back and save money. My question to you is saving a few nickels and dimes worth losing the voters, suppressing the voters in our county. I now ask the board to reconsider this decision and let our citizens keep our voting precinct at the free school in the county. Thank you for this time and have a blessed evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Brian Wallace.
Good evening, and thanks for this opportunity to speak. Brian Walls from 5844 Highlands Parkway up on the western end. I find a lot of issues with this whole ordeal, and some others on my end of the county also do. Did give Mr. Ivy, sent him an email. I don't know if he shared it with you or not. I asked him to, told him it would be good. Thomas Jefferson said that for democracy to work, we must have a well-informed citizenry. Nowhere is it more apparent than the redistricting. And there's a lot of truth to that. When you look at redistricting, you also have to take into the different cultures aspect within the districts, because each citizen needs to be represented properly. And for years now, the Wilson district is practically half of the county when it comes to the district. And from one end to the other, citizens as a whole are not being properly represented. I know we have 4 districts in the county, and I understand the numbers and the census and all that stuff. There's amendments made every day to laws. And there's not a law ever made that can't be amended. Now, with the geography and everything throughout our county, we must take that into consideration. And I'm asking you all as a board of supervisors to take that into consideration. We have 4 districts with 5 representatives right now. Maybe we need to go to 7. I don't know the answer. That's for y'all to decide. I feel that we would better benefit as a county if we done so. There's a lot of things you look at. Losing precincts is not going to help anyone in the county. Voting's supposed to be very easy. It's not supposed to be hard. And to lose those things, make people, especially the elderly, travel a further distance and everything else. It's just not fair to them. And I'm just talking plain tonight. There's no use to use elegant speech. You just put it out there plainly. People from White Top, even up towards the upper end of Flat Ridge and everything, it's hard for them to even make it down here to the county seats, to the courthouse. The center of the county is right around mouth of Wilson. So when you look at Grayson Highlands State Park and the Jefferson National Forest, that's one main reason that the census looks so, the discrepancy looks so big, because citizens cannot live in that area. So when we look at all those things, I think we need to take into consideration mileage, geography, the difference in cultures and everything else. And I know my time's up, but I'm asking you as a board to please look into this. Please take it into consideration, because amendments can be made to any law that is ever written. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Brian.
Brian. Next, I have Earl Cherry.
I didn't bring here as much paperwork. You and others brought us here, so hopefully I won't run my mouth quite much. I am Earl Cherry. I live at 3014 Commerce Rock Road in Elk Creek. I am one of the houses kind of on the edge of the Wilson district as it stands right now. When I first heard about this, I immediately had a couple of problems with it. I understand the redistricting. The state mandate has to be done. It falls under the U.S. Constitution as well. I understand all that. Where I have a problem is with eliminating 4 precincts in the one district that is going to grow the most geographically. To me, it makes no sense to eliminate 4 precincts and force people to drive 45 to 50 minutes from the edge of the district to the nearest precinct to vote. This, in my opinion, as a historian, as a teacher of US government, this violates the Voting Rights Act, in my opinion. It places an undue burden on people who have to be at work early, work a 12-hour shift, and get home late. There are people who barely make it from their homes once they get there to the Commerce Rock precinct a few miles away to vote before the polls close. If we add 30 or 40 minutes drive to that, beyond what they're already having to do, they don't get to vote unless they vote by mail or an absentee. And let's face it, there are a lot of people in this county, as safe as it may be, that simply don't trust it. And they're not going to trust it. This would prevent my mother from being able to vote. She's 80 years old. She's not going to drive to Highlands from 3 miles from Elk Creek. She's simply not going to do it. And she does not trust mail-in voting at all. I would like to thank you for your time. I see my time's about up, so I did run my mouth a little more than I thought. I would like to say that I wish Mr. Ivy were here. I think that he should have been here if there were any way possible for him to be here, since 4 of these proposed closures are in his district. And I thank you again for your time.
Thanks, Earl.
Excellent, appreciate it.
I might make one statement for Mr. Ivy in his defense. He had made plans prior to, I think, this his appointment to the board, or winning this, being on the board, and that it's no time to change his arrangements. But anyway, we'll move forward here. Nancy Hawks.
She was representing all of us. We won't take your time.
All right. Larry, is that right?
Larry Fallon.
Joe, yes.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Didn't have any notes. My name is Larry Fowler, 205 Carl Drive, Breeze. And I just wanted to reiterate what our representative Joanne mentioned, that it's going to put a lot of hardship on people to get there. And as the other gentleman said, I didn't think about it, but we have a lot of people that live on the north side or the west side of Breeze, or in our district, I should say, that they drive right by the school going to work. So now they're going to stop and go the other way. And how long that'll take. And as he said, they're going to get up earlier to go vote. And for me, it's not a problem. I get up anytime to go vote. I don't care. But the thing about it is, it does put that hardship on the people. And at our rising cost of everything, especially gas, if they got to go 4 or 5 miles this way and then come back to that and then go to work, it adds up in money. And as I said, we have a lot of retired people, a lot of people that, and a lot of elderly people that cannot get out unless someone takes them to vote. So I just think it'd be a disaster, and at the expense of voters. What, it's not worth it. And I think as everybody says, we want people to come out and vote every election. Everybody said, please come out and vote. Well, you know what? You can make some people, if they can't do it, they can't do it. You know? So I thank you for your time. You have a blessed evening.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Is it, I hope I don't get this. Is it Brenda Cruiser? Did I get
You
it
got it
right?
right.
All right. And that's without my readers.
You did great. I'm Brenda Cruiser. I live at 1795 Cummins Rock Road. And I see a lot of people here from my neighborhood. I was worried nobody would get up here and say something. So I'm just worried about people being able to go 45 minutes to vote. That's my real concern. We got a lot of elderly people and a lot of hard workers in our area that just, that's all they do is work. And I'm worried that if it's so far away, they won't go. So that's all I really have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all that I have on my list to speak. Just they can do that, so I don't know if there's anyone out there that just make sure that they did have the opportunity to sign their sheet. If somebody make a trip down here to speak and then not speak on film.
All, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you very much. Roy? Yes, since you're on the board with us. Oh, yes, I do have some. Go ahead and then I'll go to you and you.
I am the secretary of the electoral board. I guess I'll take this off. I'm the one that's been sick all week, but I'm better. I'd like to add that as of right now, we have 3 officers of election in the town of Freeze. We would like Freeze to stay in polling precinct. We need 6. So if there's anything you can do, that's what we need. And I think we have 8 out of the 15 existing precincts right now. We have 8 that we do not have enough workers to be able to function, and we have primaries coming in the June. So anything you can do, maybe everyone that's on Larry's list could try to sign up for working as an officer of election. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Corey. We also have some comments that have been submitted to staff. One is from Mr. Fred Kirby, who resides at 116 West Main Street, Freeze. The comments is detrimental to a lot of citizens, as we have a lot of that walk to the polls, and also some are disabled and traveling would hinder them. Turnout will be way down, won't go that far, and could possibly cost someone an election moving out of town with the citizens. This is from Martha Brewer. The address, but anyway, she's in opposition to closures. Good evening, supervisors. We're sending this email to state our opposition to the closing of 8 polling places, 5 of which are in one district. Voting by all citizens should be encouraged and made as convenient as possible, not made more difficult. We also oppose the name change to the districts, as this is unnecessary. It was mentioned in the article printed by the Galax Gazette that one of the reasons for closing the polling areas was cost. Might we suggest taking a small fraction of the $1.5 million that is being directed toward our Little Bailiff project and pay the poll workers? Thank you. That's Martha Brewer, Wilson District. This next one is from Brandon Bulls. And I hope this email finds each of you well. I wanted to take a moment before your public hearing this evening on the proposed closing of voting precincts and the renaming of the districts within the county to voice my opposition to both. As I'm sure you have heard from many others, I fear that eliminating eliminating close to half of the polling places in the county would have a chilling effect on voter turnout in elections moving forward. In recent years, there has been much effort to make it easier for people to vote, and I believe the closure of the proposed precincts throughout the county would do the exact opposite. The unintended consequences of this proposal would be to make it terribly difficult for a large segment of the county's population to make it to the polling places to vote. The ability of many of our citizens to simply drive a further distance to vote is potentially made more difficult by the rising price of gas that we are experiencing and that likely will not go away anytime soon. Furthermore, I disagree with the renaming of the districts within the county. I see no legitimate reason to rename our districts, which citizens have come to know and identify with for generations. I appreciate the difficult position each of you are in, and I understand there are many, maybe some justification that have been presented to you from both of these proposals. However, I believe the negative impact on our community would far outweigh any suggested benefit to the county. I hope that you would consider these concerns in making your decisions. Thank you for all that each of you do in the service of the county. Brandon Bulls, Grayson County Commonwealth Attorney. Next is a letter from Tim and Marcia Sutherland, and they live on Katie Sage Road. I don't have an address, but I'm pretty sure that's where they live. Hi, I want to state my opposition to redistricting. I live 2.692 miles from downtown Elk Creek. A few years back, we were moved from the Elk Creek district to the Mouth Wilson district. I am 15 plus miles from there. I was not happy with this decision, but I still could vote in Comers Rock. That is about 5 miles from me. I'm against moving my voting place to Grayson Highland School, which would be close to 30 miles from me. This is just stupid. The elderly in our community will not be able to get to these polling places. We will be at the meeting tonight. I pray God directs this meeting and Grayson County does something to help our elderly residents. Leave our districts as they are. Tim and Marcia Sutherland, 692 Katy Sage Road. There's their address, Elk Creek, Virginia. I'm going to butcher this name. Okay, all right. Ken Bauman. My name is Ken Bauman. I moved to Comers Rock 20 years ago, and I have voted here ever since. Now I read about a proposed plan that would make me drive 34 miles, 45 minutes each way to Grayson Highland School to cast a vote. One of our selling points is there's plenty of parking. Let me ponder the exalted wisdom of this statement. Having lots of parking makes up for driving 68 extra miles to vote. Are you serious? I want to let you know there's plenty of parking right here at Comers Rock School. I never had a single problem, not once in 20 years. I promise you I will not drive 90 minutes to vote. I understand that I can vote by mail or vote early as I pass by the courthouse on the sunny day in October, but I am an old school guy who treasures getting up on voting day and going to the polls to vote and interact with the poll workers and other voters. I look forward to it as much as I did to waking up on Christmas Day when I was a child, looking under the Christmas tree. Voting on election day is a privilege I hold dear, yet I will not drive 90 minutes to do it. I will just stop voting. If that is your goal, bingo, you win. I am not against consolidation. Sometimes it's good, but this plan is extreme. The IRS puts car expense this year. Okay, 58.5 cents per mile. So at 68 miles, I would have to pay $39.79 to vote. And of course, you know, with the Ukrainian invasion, it will be even higher next year. This is very similar to the poll tax southern states levied in the late 1800s to prevent poor blacks from voting. This is what you're telling me in veiled syntax. If you want to vote, it costs you $40. This is what I have to say about that. Hear ye, I am not driving 68 miles to vote. You can take that to the bank. Another point among many. I think we got the gist of her concern. Okay, thank you. By the way, my wife hates to hear me read. So. She won't let me read the Bible to me. That's what you pay for living with the English teacher. Okay. All right. This is from Brian Billings, and I won't be able to attend the hearing this week, but I wanted to pass along a few thoughts for your consideration. One, understand that state law requires redrawing of the district lines according to population. That is out of your control. Two, how the districts are named doesn't matter. Three, elimination of several voting locations doesn't make sense. The need for phone service hasn't been a stumbling block in the past, and the few issues that do arise could be handled. I doubt there are many issues that require an instant phone call. That is a weak argument. I know that mail-in ballots are an option, but folks around here take pride in showing up to vote. It is a proud tradition. Let me give you an example of how this does not make sense. The eastern line of the Wilson District is near the CenturyLink phone station on Commerce Rock Road. Voters in that area now vote at Commerce Rock, about a 5-minute drive. With the new setup, they will have to go to Grant. The quickest route is through Independence. As they travel this route, they will pass by within a mile of 3 polling places: Elk Creek Rescue, Independence High, and Bridle Creek. The total drive one way about 35 minutes. Many of the folks in this community are elderly and will probably stay at home rather than make this trek. I feel that the elderly folks won't be the only ones that stay at home. In case I pass within a few of the Commerce Rock polling locations every day on the way to and from work. I typically arrive late in the day, and I'm usually one of the last to vote before the 7 p.m. closing. With the new setup, I would have to account for the extra 35 minutes of drive time and leave work early to vote. Voting is a right and privilege. We should be seeking ways to make it easier to vote. We shouldn't be worrying about cost and convenience for the county officials that have the responsibility to make sure we cast our ballots. Please keep these thoughts in mind as you deliberate this issue. Thank you for your time and for your service to the citizens of the county. Linda, if possible, please enter. Okay, for that. Heather Cole, good morning. I'm writing you today in reference to the new voting districts. I'm very concerned about the proposed change. I live in Commerce Rock, and my current polling place is and has always been the Commerce Rock Community Center. This is a very convenient location for me and only about 2 minutes drive. With the proposed change, I would have to drive to Grayson Highland School to vote. This is easy, an hour from my house. Driving an hour one direction to vote would be very, very inconvenient. I do not have the 2 extra hours to drive to a polling place. The road to get there is very curvy and not well maintained. It is not an easy trip. In addition, my husband works out of town and already drives over an hour to get to work. He gets home very late and wouldn't have time to drive to Grayson Highland School before the polls close. Even if we took off work early, we would not want to drive an additional 2-hour round trip after already driving all day. Voting is very important and should be made easy and convenient for all. Asking us to drive over an hour for something that takes 5 minutes to complete is strictly out of the question, and please excuse me, but saying absurd. We are all busy in our day-to-day lives, and voting should be easy, not harder. Please also consider the elderly in our community. They would not be able to drive an hour to vote. Thank you for hearing my voice. I appreciate the time and attention to this important matter. Heather Cole. And this is Ms. Gunners. We've already heard that. I'll make a copy of Ms. Heather Cole's. So I think that's it.
Mr. Chair, you entertain a motion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Anderson.
I'd like to make one. Close the public hearing.
Oh, we gotta go out of closed session, that's right. We gotta go out of closed session. If there's no other speakers, or anyone wishing to speak, I entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So
So,
Okay. All in favor, is signify by saying aye.
uh,
I also aye. 4-0 vote.
Mr. Chairman, before, may I suggest a process that we go through? Because I think we've got really 3 issues here that we need to talk about. The redistricting, and the polling issue, and then the process issue. So not to jump in your way of the motion, but just if we could maybe address the redistricting thing first in a motion, stand alone for that. And then we can talk about that piece. And then we do another motion for the polling stations and the renaming.
it was my understanding we've already approved the redistricting, and that's already been sent off.
Actually, we approved all 3 issues in order to get it to a public hearing, as I understand it, because we're under a timeline with the state. Correct, Mr. Durbin?
Yes, in order to expedite approval so that the mails can go out to citizens, the submission has been made to the Attorney General's office based on the ordinance that was advertised. That would not prevent you from changing the ordinance tonight. I would issue a supplement with a letter explaining the difference and a copy of whatever you all adopt tonight. Submit that to the Attorney General's office for their consideration, but as long as you're not exceeding the scope of changes that were already advertised, I don't think it's going to delay consideration by the AG.
So the motion, excuse me, the motion for redistricting, we don't need to address because that's already been done, or we should go ahead and readdress the
question.
Yeah.
You've only, the only thing you've approved is the advertisement for the public hearing. So you have before you alternative ordinances. One of the alternatives is as advertised. One of the alternatives is to only make a change to the polling place of the folks that are transferring from the Elk Creek district to the Wilson district.
Right.
And then I believe there's another change would be to change one polling place, I think at Grant. Because that was I think that was the polling place was gonna change anyway. Those are the same.
So the idea before the board is to maybe break this thing down. So we deal with the redistricting thing first and then get that done. And then we talk about the polling, do the polling and renaming each second. And then at least from my view, we've got a process thing that we need to talk about that we may need to get on the table. So that's a suggested way ahead if everybody's okay with that.
So we're gonna have 3 motions?
Well, that's my suggestion, but
Well, could I make?
We could entertain your motion.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead.
Well, I want to make a motion that we do not close any precincts or change the name. And that could be the first thing of motion, because that's, I think, the will of the people. And then the second issue we can address is that.
yeah, the order doesn't matter. We can,
Okay.
you know, that's fine with me.
So that.
So
can restate.
you want, go ahead and restate your motion.
Okay, I make a motion that we do not close any precincts or implement a name change.
Do I have a second to that? Okay, I have a motion made and a second. Any discussion prior to the You made the motion, so you have the, you might as far as you would discuss if you have.
And I'll be brief. So I made that motion based on the outpouring of the community. When it was first presented and people were, it was presented to us and we could save money. So I'm always looking how, we can save your tax dollars. But as we talked about the process, there was a lot of folks calling, emailing, and even though I kind of like the name change, I only had a couple of folks agree with me on that. Tons of folks were opposed to it. So I'm just saying that to say this, that I'm listening to what folks are saying, and I think this outpouring of concern is important. This is the way democracy should work. And I'm hoping that when future issues arrive, we can have this same kind of turnout and expression from the community. And I think I'm not going to speak for my colleagues, but I know we all like to hear from you guys, and what you're telling us is important, because we do go to those precincts and ask you to vote for us, and we stand out there and we go to your houses and we ask you to vote. So to make that process harder would be counterproductive. So that's all I have to say, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So any other member have a speak to issue?
I'll say one if I had. As you can see, this was a process. Word gets out that this was a done deal. And board of supervisors took a lot of slack over it, being stupid or what's on Facebook, although that's gonna be the truth. But, anyway, that we had in our pockets, and I never have figured out because we don't get much. Let's see. But anyway, this is a process. It wasn't a done deal. We got a lot of flack over if we put this out there. I just wanted to put that out. It's just like the cigarette tax. It was a done deal according to Facebook, and it wasn't. So give us a break on some of this stuff. That's all I got.
Mr. Mayor.
So first of all, the electoral board, your electoral board did a really super job on bringing this forward in a very compressed timeline. So thanks to y'all, and thanks to all the folks that showed up and sent emails and phone calls. Appreciate that. I support the motion, but we got to talk about reality. The demographics of this county are not favorable to maintaining the number of polling stations we have. The only way we're going to do that, it's not a cost issue, it's not a money issue from whether or not we have money to be able to do it. It's frankly a volunteer issue. It's the same issue we faced with our first responders and our rescue squad and our fire department. Same issue. We need volunteers. We need people. One of the things that I've asked the registrar is to talk to the school board about getting into government classes. Get those students who are legal, 18, registered to vote, and get them at the polling, work those polling stations. It's a holiday now. Can we energize the younger generation so that the lady that spent 40 years of her life, now she's 42, working at the polling station, we can give her a break, pat her on the back, job well done. But we've got to address the volunteer issue across the county if we want to keep this place the way it is. And that's really what's driving this, is we don't have the people. And the demographics are not on our favor. The Wilson district got bigger because there's less people in the Wilson district, and we're required to have a certain number in each district. So if we want to keep these polling stations open, we got to get people engaged, and we got to get them there. So I'm in favor of keeping the polling stations for the short term. But the long term is not favorable. And that's why the discussion earlier with the lawyer was, do we have the ability to readdress? Because we are going to have to readdress. The redistricting thing, that's once every 10 years, done. All right. But the polling stations, the precincts, it's going to come back again. Because if you go to your polling station, the doors are locked because we ain't got no workers. Then what? So that's really where we need all your all's help. Everybody that came out tonight, Larry, you got a lot of work to do, brother, because you got 160. But we gotta get the folks energized and volunteer and help us solve this problem. And if we can, then, you know, it is gonna be easier to vote. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
And I would like to say a couple words myself. I do commend Grayson County Board of Election and the Registrar's Office for your hard work in trying to be good stewards. And I do know that you're up against a difficult task when trying to keep these polls with workers and getting the community involved. It's a very precious right that we have, the right to vote. It's the cornerstone of our country or our government is people's voice and the ability to speak out. I guess we'll go ahead, that being the discussion.
I think just one thing, Mr. Chairman, anytime that we can say that people in Independence are in Elk Creek, that's a good day. All right. So that's why I like the Elk Creek district name. That's supposed to be a little funnier than I thought it was going to be.
I guess sorry, we definitely should move on to wait. All right, we have a motion before the board, and we have a second. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Can we get a roll call vote, Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Andrews.
Aye.
Mr. Fan.
Aye.
Mr. Phil. I also aye.
So,
we have a motion.
yeah, I'm making a motion. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, if I may. In light of your motion, I sort of limited the issues. I would suggest in terms of process that you're now ready to take up the second version of the ordinance that accomplishes redistricting,
Yes.
but only makes the change to, and I'll just read it. The only precinct changes would be that those voters formerly residing in the Elk Creek election district and transferred to the Wilson election district as a result of this ordinance shall hereafter vote in the Bridle Creek voting district. And the polling place for the Grant precinct shall be at the Grayson Highland School, 6459 Troutdale Highway. That, with those modifications, I think that would be right for
So
consideration.
can I amend the motion?
Now, what we could do is, this would be a separate motion. We just go ahead and proceed with the.
It would be to adopt the ordinance with that language.
Yes.
One of the alternatives before.
Okay. This would concern redistricting. I'd entertain a motion concerning redistricting.
The chairman, I make a motion, we approve the redistricting ordinance with the noted recommended changes by the county attorney.
Okay, I have a motion before the board. I have a second. Mr. Belt, second. Any discussion?
Yes, let me be clear, because we're talking about, because the original plan had that we close the Comer's Rock precinct. So we're not closing, we've already covered that. So if we approve the motion before us, does that mean those folks in the upper part of Big Ridge that are currently in the Elk Creek district that just got put in the Wilson district, they're gonna have to drive to Bridle Creek to vote? Or can they not vote at Comer's Rock precinct that didn't get closed?
It's not closed now, right? So I understand we vote as is currently.
I actually probably need a little bit of the map.
So I'm just wondering now, make sure those folks don't have to drive. But the Comer's Rock is like-
Well, I can't.
I thought, yeah, I
These don't have
thought.
Where the courthouse.
They're gonna be in
Possession.
Chairman, do let all board folks have clarified that for me, and thank you
Sorry.
for doing so. No, I appreciate it. To do as suggested, to change the language of the proposed ordinance would split a census block, and that's something we can't do.
So those folks in that district are gonna have to drive to
Bridal
Creek.
Creek is the option.
Do we have any other options? Do we have an alternative? Because that's brutal.
The courthouse, they can vote at the courthouse.
At the courthouse or by mail, but we can't break out a census block. That's the smallest unit that we can work with. According to the redistricting rules, we can't.
You can't split that area.
Because it's one census block, we can't split it in half.
Even though they're both,
Doesn't matter, it's one census block.
it has to go in the
Has
one.
to go.
Is that the census block is the legal language that you can't?
That is the smallest unit that we can
Could they all go to Combs Rock?
break up.
Yeah. Or Bill, everybody there to go to Combs Rock instead of.
That's
So you can move the whole census block to vote at Bridal, Homer's Rock instead of Bridal Creek.
It should still be, as far as compact, that one's, it's still just one big chunk, more or less.
okay, because of logistics, could we create another precinct for those folks so they don't have to drive so far?
It's only it's not even 300 people. So then you're getting into that high cost.
If you're one of those 300 people that pay taxes.
No, I understand, that's fine, we're trying to watch out for your money.
Right,
that's all.
right. Thank you for that.
Madam Registrar,
Sorry.
do you have the ability to make that change of the on the census zone of who, where, what voting precinct they go to, or is that a motion we need from us? I mean, can you all in your all's process?
Instead of having them go to Combs Rock or having to go to Bridal Creek.
Yeah, I mean, is that something you all can balance within your system, or is that something that we have to tell you that this census block goes to this voting precinct?
No, I mean, that's up to you all where you want to put it, because you decide who goes where. We plugged it in because that was in line with some of our other combinations.
You draw the
So
precinct
that was
boundaries.
just one of our suggestions.
So sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You draw the
Yeah, so
precinct boundaries, but there are some things you just can't split.
Yeah, no, I
So
got you,
you
but, so if we move that census zone, if we move it, we gotta move everybody in that census zone,
Because it's one,
census block.
yeah, and I know that was a big chunk, and when we were looking at the redistricting altogether, if you add that in with anything else, it's too much, and that was really the only option we had, is that one chunk. But if you wanted to go to Combs Rock instead of Bridal Creek,
It doesn't change the numbers of Wilsonville.
no, it's all Wilson districts, so.
Because those folks at the other end of the precinct are gonna drive possibly as far as Big Pond.
Yeah.
We're trying to jumble this thing. And I'm
Yeah,
trying to think of the logical way that fits the law to address this.
well, and that's what we're looking, what we were looking at, if you take the folks that are in this area down here on the other side, they're gonna be just as bad a shape as, so you're just trading one group for the other, you're not doing anybody in favors overall. That makes sense.
I understand what you're saying, does it make sense to another issue?
But yeah, that might not be a big question.
Yeah,
but-
I understand.
So where that block goes is,
If. What we got, Shirley? So what are the ramifications if we added another precinct in the center of that block? What, could that be done?
I don't know where you put it. I don't know what facility.
We have to think logistically, what kind of facility we would have available that would be ADA accessible, parking, and logistically, that might be.
And that wasn't, having a precinct was not advertised for public hearing, so
So we're getting out of the scalpel bird.
arguably it won't be on the scope.
Scope.
What you advertise.
So that we get scalped. I'm stumped.
Can we restate the motion?
Clerk.
Adopt the ordinance with noted recommended changes by the attorney.
And Steve, would you just go over those changes one more time?
Yeah, the changes would be to keep all precincts and voting locations that are in existence right now with the two following exceptions. And that would be that those voters formerly residing in the Elk Creek election district and transferred to the Wilson district as a result of this ordinance shall hereafter vote in the Bridle Creek voting precinct. And the polling place for the Grant precinct shall be at Grayson Highlands School, 6459 Troutdale Highway.
Thanks. I gave them what
There's a picture.
Mr. Chairman, if I can clarify one thing, that motion on the floor also does not change the name of the election district. The only changes would be as the boundary line of the redistricting and then those two changes to precincts as I read them. It's not change the names of any of the districts.
So we still having discussion
yes.
on the motion?
Yeah, we're still.
Okay, because I just wanted, I'm trying to ask these questions as I always do, as if I was sitting out there, because I've been sitting out there for years. So it appears as it's presented, and according to the law, you can't break the census block up in that group from my district that's currently going to the Wilson district. At this time, are gonna have to vote at the Bridle Creek precinct. And I think it's worth noting that we're gonna try to figure something out. It doesn't, we don't see a solution to that at this time based on the parameters that we have to work within. And I think my colleague may address that in a future motion, is my understanding. So having said that, I will support the motion that's on the floor, Mr. Chair.
We had a second, we want to discuss it. Now, we
Okay.
just got to vote.
So if you get a roll call, vote, you can get that one. I'm not trying to close discussion.
Okay, anybody else? Okay. All right, hearing no further discussion, that's for a roll call vote, Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Fain.
Aye.
Bill. Also aye.
And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to entertain another motion to direct the staff, the administration, to work with the registrar's office to review these proposals that were brought to us tonight within the next 60 days and come back with possible recommended changes. It could be related to census blocks or census zones, but it is going to take into effect the changes that we need to deal with. You know, we're going to put on this recruiting drive, or hopefully we'll solve that problem. But what we heard though is that we were under a compressed timeline, right? And so the redistricting thing may only happen every 10 years, but this precinct deal is going to happen a lot more frequently than that. And so we need a process, and I don't think we have that codified. I know I'm not going to be here in 10 years, all right? You probably will be, but we need that lined up so that we're not reinventing the wheel in 10 years. But in the next year, we're going to have to revisit this polling thing again if we don't get the people that we need to work the process. So the motion is to direct the administration to work with the county registrar's office to review the process and procedures for reviewing the polling stations or precincts, and that we do that within the next 60 days to report back to people.
It's just a motion, we'll have to have a second, it's not on, until we have a second.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, now this is up for discussion. Mr. Fain made the motion.
I think I did my discussion before I made the motion.
See if you had any further.
Well, I'm hoping that we include in that, you know, maybe some incentive or a sign-on bonus or what, because I know that seems to be the ultimate issue here is volunteers and recruiting those. So when they go back to the drawing board on that issue, if we can look at our budget and see if we can tweak the numbers, especially in this economy, maybe we can offer some financial incentive, whatever that may be, to help recruit workers and retain what you have.
Okay, roll call vote. All right, Mr. Anderson.
Yes.
Mr. Fain. Aye. Mr. Bell. Also aye. Staff, Mr. Sheriff.
Yeah, yes, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank Stacy Rivas for all the hard work she put into making this happen. It's a very difficult thing to do, and it's intense. And we want you to know that we recognize that, and we appreciate you. We appreciate the board that is working with you. So thank you.
I agree with that. Thanks, Stacy.
With this issue.
Not on this issue.
All right, thank you, sir.
All right.
Yeah, let's go on recess for about 5 minutes and we'll reconvene. Adjourn. thank you. Next, Gate Center, is Rebecca Roberts, Facility Manager. She's got a presentation.
Lindsay is going to do her introduction first.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
All right, good evening. I'm Lindsay Young, the newly hired Agriculture Economic Development Director. I wanted to thank you for your time this evening, allowing us to give you an update on the Gate Center Commercial Kitchen and Conference Room Facility. Our facility manager, Rebecca Roberts, will give an update on the usage of the facility to date and comment on our plans to market the facility moving forward. We will then have Sarah Price with the Health Department give a brief presentation on how a certified commercial kitchen is to be used and the rules and regulations that go along with it. Then Kevin Sperling will wrap up with a few brief comments. This facility is truly one of a kind and has the ability to take our community and businesses to the next level. Without taking any more of their time, I'm going to ask Rebecca to please come forward and present first. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Board of Supervisors. Yes. I just did a quick PowerPoint, so we can make it quick and just get kind of the point. That's the rough spots that you all would be interested in. Since August of 2021, that's where I stopped at the end of August. Since that was when I began. The conference room has been utilized 129 times, and the commercial kitchen has been utilized 47 times. The facility has been utilized mostly by the county departments, and I've listed the different county departments that have used the facility over and over again. Some of them use it on a continuous basis, same time each month. Some of them just do it on a frequent basis. The monies that we have generated for paid individuals as of this date is $345. And the value that is there right now, if we charged everyone for using it, is about $9,860. And that's including the ones that were using it during the farmers feeding the farmers. Additional use of the commercial kitchen in the conference room, you can see that. I won't bore you with it. It's the one there. Grayson County High School, they've been great in sharing with us with their utensils. We haven't been able to get our plates yet from the companies we've ordered from, so the culinary arts department at the high school has been generous in loaning those to us till we get ours. The Homeowners Association of Point Lookout, that they were one of our paid customers that came in and utilized it and had a culinary arts instructor and also a caterer in the kitchens. Landcraft Foods and individual events. Some of them were individuals such as myself that used the facility, and also some of the employees there. Targets of clientele for the facility. If we look at the conference room, we're looking at educational organizations such as our Boy Scouts of America, our Girl Scouts of America, our 4-H, and our FFA. We're looking for business startups for the individuals. We're looking for surf-safe classes, which we've already had there. And we're looking to partner with the SBDC. In our commercial kitchen, we want to do more educational seminars. We want to do culinary art techniques classes in the kitchen. We want to do business startup kitchens for the recipients. We want to do health awareness seminars, which Mr. Shipley has so graciously pointed out that we need to address, and resources for starting and growing your business for increased production and sales. Because that's one thing our commercial kitchen can really do, especially for the vendors at the farmers market. They can take their small kitchen that they have been certified in their homes, which is the Virginia state laws, and they can expand their productions much, much more in a commercial kitchen. Plus, if they do their products in our commercial kitchen, they can not only sell here in Virginia, but they can take the products over into Florida and sell at their facility, at their farmers markets. Now, after you've heard my spiel, the health department is going to go into the regulations and the guidelines. So do y'all have any questions?
No? Thank you for all you do.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca.
My pleasure.
Good evening, board. Mr. Chairman, thank you for having me. For those of you who haven't met me before, my name is Sarah Price. I'm the Environmental Health Supervisor with the Mount Rogers Health District.
I was previously the Galax Grayson Health Inspector, so I've worked with a lot of the people in the region. And I was with the Gate Center when it first came on board. A little history with the Gate Center, I'm sure you guys are familiar with it, but from my perspective, when we first heard about the Gate Center, we were contacted about their intent of use. The intent of use, as described to us, was that we would have the opportunity to have a teaching kitchen. Perhaps we would do product development and testing. These uses would involve using that commercial kitchen to actually instruct people. They may be able to participate in the production of these foods. And then those foods that were made would be served back to them and perhaps to other people in the room. That constitutes food service under our regulations, which requires the permit. They also discussed using that commercial kitchen and making it accessible to, for example, a hot dog cart or a food truck or a caterer who wanted to come in and use this commercial kitchen as a commissary. Under VDH regulations, certain facilities like mobile units that are small and not self-contained, like a hot dog cart, have to have a commissary base that is a commercial kitchen under VDH inspection. So that's a great thing, in my opinion, to have that available to the county. It offers opportunities to public for small businesses to grow. There's a lot of these people, they can manage to scrape together the money for a hot dog cart or a small food truck, but they can't come up with the money for a commissary. I know that over, I think it's Patrick County, they've got a nice one that's pretty good size, and they've got at least a dozen food vendors operating out of there. So you can see the opportunities for revenue if we can keep it available. Unfortunately, right after this one was permitted, here comes COVID. So we didn't get the proper use of it. I think you probably would have seen. But I put the word out there. Every time somebody comes to me and applies, say, hey, guess what? This Gate Center over there, they got a commercial kitchen. Okay, so what I'm doing here tonight is to talk to you about the food regs. Before I get started, I'm just going to throw this out there just in case I have to stop. I do have a respiratory issue. It's non-infectious. It may cause my voice to cut out. If it does, I'm going to call on my coworker, Cassie. I also want to introduce you. Cassie, stand up for us, please. As I moved out of the health inspector position in Grayson County, Cassie Wiggins was hired in. She is now your local health inspector for Galax Grayson. Added bonus, she's actually based at the Grayson County Health Department in Independence, whereas I was over in Galax. All right, so moving forward, what we're going to do, I'm going to give you a crash course in Virginia food regulations. However, I'm going to keep it brief because the Virginia food regulations are like this, and I'm not going to torture you and put you all through that. You should all have in front of you basically a table of contents for chapter 421 of the Virginia Administrative Code. Now, I'm not going to go through verbatim everything in this. It is, as I mentioned, it's a lot of regulations. My point for you is that you can see the breadth and scope of the regulations that any permitted food establishment under VDH is required to comply with. So if you hold a VDH permit for a food establishment, you have to fall in line with all of these regulations, and not just the VAC regulations, but also Code of Virginia regulations, FDA, and actually some multi-state organizations like the Shellfish Sanitation Conference that promulgate regulations for specialty foods. I'm going to narrow this down in scope a great deal to try to target things that are most specifically going to apply to your facility and the kinds of uses I'm hearing that you're getting for the facility. All right, let's start out with the 5 biggest risk factors in food service. So what this means is that if you have somebody in food service and they're doing something that is risky and they're not handling it properly, you are posing a risk to the consumer. That person is at risk of foodborne illness, foodborne intoxication, or what you would call poisoning. They've been consuming a toxin produced because the food was abused. The 5 biggest risk factors are approved source, employee health and hygiene, proper cook temps, proper holding temps, and cross-contamination. Approved source. So what is an approved source? This is a big deal in food protection and food safety. Approved source depends on the specific food, but it includes water and ice, as well as all the individual foods. A huge component of that is that you cannot have foods that are made in a private home brought in to a commercial kitchen. It's strictly in violation of the regs. That is not an approved source unless that kitchen has been approved by some Virginia authority for food production. That's not to say that we don't have some homes where somebody didn't put in a commercial kitchen in a spare bedroom or even in an outbuilding, and it can be approved. I'm talking about your actual personal kitchens, where the kids are and maybe the cat's on the counter and everything else. Approved foods also mean, for example, for milk, fluid milk, it has to be from a grade A dairy. Meats have to be inspected by USDA, and on and on and on. It just depends on the food. A huge part of this also is that home canned foods are not allowed unless it has been approved by VDAX, that's the Department of Agriculture, for a manufactured process. They can't bring it into that commercial kitchen. So we have to have control of what comes in. And there's a legitimate reason. I will give you an example. Let's say that Joe Blow down the street, he kills goats in his backyard. Maybe he's not all that great at killing goats and processing goats, but he wants to bring that goat into the gate center because he's got an ethnic group that really would like to have the goat meat, and goat meat's hard to find. We can't let him bring it in, and if we did, there's a high risk he's going to introduce contamination such as E. coli and Campylobacter to your food processing facility. You don't want to bring it in. The people that routinely run and use that facility under a permit, they've got the training and the expectation that whatever foods have been brought in there are not contaminated with these hazards. They're not going to know to take precautions to eliminate them. So you may actually contaminate other foods if that fellow comes in. Second, employee health and hygiene. Employee health and hygiene is the #1 cause of foodborne illness in America. It's mostly because workers come to work sick, but it's also something simple like somebody pulling their pants up and then going back to bare-hand contact with foods. If any place on your outer clothing is going to have fecal contamination, it's probably your waistband. Health inspectors shudder to see somebody walking around yanking their pants up all the time. It's not sanitary. Unfortunately, it does happen a lot. If people aren't properly trained, they don't know to implement the precautions to prevent contaminating the work area. Proper cook times and holding times. I'm not going to go into all that. That's not got the biggest part of my concerns about if we don't control who accesses this commercial kitchen. Cross-contamination, though, does. Cross-contamination is things like getting shellfish or allergen dripping into other foods, storing raw meats above a ready-to-eat food. So let's say that somebody with a permit operating out of the gate center, or maybe the gate center staff themselves, they've got food in there for an event tomorrow. They've got a potato salad in here that's ready to eat. They've got a garden salad chopped up. They're properly stored in the refrigerator. At the end of the day, milk jug's empty, so they throw that open and we got an empty space up here above those prepared foods. We got somebody coming in after hours, and that person brings in, let's say, shrimp. Let's say they bring in a box of shrimp. They're going to have a shrimp cooking for some event there. They're not trained. They don't know anything about cross-contamination. They don't think about allergens. They put that box of shrimp up there above your garden salad and your potato salad. The saran wrap over top of it's just slowly dripping stuff out of the shrimp into your prepared salads. Now we have a severe risk allergen, as well as whatever's associated with the raw shrimp. It could be forms of Clostridium, other bacteria that have contaminated those foods. The person that comes in tomorrow may not realize the shrimp were ever there because they're gone. And their foods are still there, and they think the moisture on top of the plastic covering their food is just maybe from when they prepped this. They don't think anything of it,
and it gets spread throughout the facility or throughout the food. And we end up with somebody that's got a shellfish allergy having an allergic reaction. All right, we're gonna go on to more specifics that I've extracted. We'll try and keep it short here, but these are specific points that I pulled out of the code that I think are relevant for the uses that could be happening at the facility, things that we want to control and that we have to control if we want to be operating under a permit. All right, first,
Ma'am,
yes, sir.
what is it you need us to do for you?
What I need is that we have control over the permitted facility, that we do not have untrained, unsupervised people accessing a commercial kitchen. If they do, not only do we introduce all these hazards, but you actually put your permit in jeopardy.
Right, so then what do you need this board to do?
What I need is that we have controls over access to that facility. So anytime that facility is in use, there has to be a person in charge, what we call a PIC, who is food safety trained and is controlling everything that goes on in there. We can't have the general public or unsupervised people in there.
Right, but isn't this an administrative issue? I mean, do you need a decision out of the Board of Supervisors?
No,
for
sir.
this?
I was requested to come in. Rebecca had asked me to come in and just talk to the board to make sure we have clear guidelines of the boundaries that the permit entail. Having that permit does tie our hands a little bit with that facility. It can't be used for everything. I know we want the general public to get as much as they can out of our facilities. I understand that, but we have to operate within the permit.
Okay. I think in talking with Rebecca, we have those things in place. It was my understanding that she's got the rules and some of the things you just mentioned, she had mentioned before.
Yes.
Does that need to be official policy? Because I think that's already in place, if I'm not mistaken.
It's, my understanding is it's in place, but there may be times when it is being sort of put to the side in order to appease a member of the public who wants a use of the facility that's not in line with these permit requirements.
Will that be a monitoring issue? If we already have your recommendations and requirements in place, and if there's a violation of that, we have to deal with that, I guess, is a different thing. So I kind of feel John's sentiment. I'm not sure if those are things that are already in place, I'm not sure what you're asking us.
The guidelines were put in place at the beginning. From what I'm being told, it sounds like they are not always being complied with, and it's not necessarily limited to what Rebecca is supervising. It's perhaps going around her. I know there was an incident where we had a vendor from North Carolina that is a caterer wanting to come up and use the facility. That may be legal, it may not, but that person has to have approval from North Carolina, for example, to use your facility as their commissary. They can't just come in off the street and use it, is what I'm saying.
So do we need to maybe empower Rebecca a little more with?
Yes, sir, I believe so.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because we don't want a liability issue where somebody goes in there and gets food poisoning and
Yes.
we've got bigger problems.
I
So
agree.
maybe we can address that as her position with administration.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with you completely, and I think what Rebecca's trying to do, there's lots of folks that have said, can't you just make this change for me? And what we want to do is, we want to be consistent, and we want to make sure, I don't think there's really a need to go through, a tremendous amount of detail on what you do. I think what we were trying to say to you is, help us to enforce this by helping us prevent people that might get mad about the fact that they have to follow the rules, contacting you all to say, they're stopping us from doing a simple whatever it is. If you can just help us in that, that's really the message that we want to get.
Excuse me, may I add something? Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
It's more of an educational reason too. I think that a lot of the new board members and the old board members, you implemented this, but you didn't really understand the whole concept that was involved in it. So I did ask Sarah to come here to kind of give you an educational understanding of what that commercial kitchen is all about, because I myself since I've been in a facility manager and took the Serve Safe certification and have actually been a Serve Safe certified person before. There's a lot of changes that have been made since I was certified. So the basics are there, but there's still different guidelines that Virginia laws are different, North Carolina laws are different. We've got farmers market vendors that want to use it. And there's not an educational concept within you all and with the public to where they understand what it is that we have there. When we say commercial kitchen, they just hear kitchen. And we need to let them know it's not a community kitchen. It's not like the VFW. It's not like the fire department. It's not like just going to the church. It has more involved in it. And that's where the health department comes in. It's like more like a restaurant. And Kenneth, you know what that's all about. It's more like a restaurant, and there's things we can and we cannot do. And I don't want the power. I'm just following the guidelines that you and the people that put this together, I'm just enforcing them. But you are the ones that when people come to you and say, well, you know, Rebecca's down there and she's not letting me do so-and-so. It's not that I'm not letting them do anything. I've got these guidelines that are in place and I'm trying to enforce them.
Well, with all due respect, when you toured me around down there, maybe twice, I was scared to even lay a cookie down on the table because she was going to smack my hand.
Oh, I was that bad?
I think you do a good job explaining that. So if there's something you need from the board to empower you to do that better or whatever, I guess we just need to hear it because we're kind of, or I'm sorry, I'm not speaking for the entire board, but just what do you need, Rebecca?
I need you all to have an understanding of what that kitchen is all about. I want you to know what you can and cannot do in that kitchen. And I think that some of you have not, you thought that, okay, it's a commercial kitchen, but what can and cannot be done in there? Because we've got so many aspects that is involved, as Sarah shared with you, food trucks, vendors, people that want to come in and can their own food. You know, you need to know what can and cannot be done.
Right. Well, I know you guys put a fridge and a microwave and stuff in the main
Commercial
meeting
room.
area.
Right.
For just casual meetings. It's not anything to do
Right.
with that part of the facility.
Totally.
And I'm hearing you guys loud and clear. And I heard you back in December when you walked me through there, or told me, you know, the rules. So I'll.
Okay. Mr. Ship?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it's basically this. She's enforcing the rules the way that they're supposed to be enforced. I back her up. She's had to call me several times and say, I'm getting a lot of pressure from this person or that person to say, you know, why do I have to go through all this stuff or fill out that form or do this or that? And I've backed her completely. And all we're doing is trying to extend that backing to you guys. So they don't go past me and say, you know, Bill won't let me do this and or Rebecca won't let us do this. So that's
You're
it.
doing good because I got 0 calls.
That's really that's the level of information we need to give to you all. I think we've done that now.
Yeah.
We hear you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Ms. Pearl? You still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
We sure can. Thank you for being with us.
Yeah, thank you all for having me tonight. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. I don't think you'd want me to be there in person, given the circumstances. But I'm going to make mine brief because I think the questions that you all just asked about what is needed from you all. Basically, we just came tonight to raise your awareness so that you could help us communicate to the citizens, to talk about and manage expectations as we really get this thing going. I mean, it's in its infancy as far as its availability to the public. It's not in its infancy as far as concept because that started in 2016. And as far as the vision of what it was supposed to be, and I just wanted to add a couple of things. That this kitchen and the conference center was always intended to support economic development, particularly of the ag sector, but general economic development. And that was written into grant documents that we used as we fought for this and got 170,300 through Tobacco Commission and USDA. And I just wanted to add that I wrote those grants on behalf of the county and had to go to Abingdon and then later to Appomattox for the Tobacco Commission grant review process. 2 times staff did not, and I'm talking about Tobacco Commission staff, did not want to fund this because they did not want to fund a community center. And we kept telling them that's not what it is. It's for business development. And, we had some tremendous partners on the Tobacco Commission, Senator Carrico, Richard Sutherland, serving on the Tobacco Commission at that time, saw what we were trying to do to make it more than just a community kitchen. And I think it's important to focus on what we have is unique. There are hoops to jump through, certainly for folks that want to use this, mainly because we don't want to jeopardize its standing as a commercial kitchen. But at the same time, we want to focus on what makes it special, what makes it unique. There's not a facility like this anywhere close by. And not only with the educational aspects of the conference room, we can do distance education in there, but also that kitchen. And, we can do not only the Department of Health aspects where we have a food establishment, think about that in terms of a cafeteria restaurant, but also a manufacturing facility where we can can things. And Mitch, if he wants to do a barbecue sauce, can develop that. We can put a label on it and we can sell that not only locally, but interstate and even to folks like Food City who would not buy that out of a private kitchen. And so I think that's really important that we focus on those things that make this special, that we can communicate that as we're talking to people out in the public. And, I want to highlight one last thing and then I'll let you go. You all have had a long night. I know it. We have had support already, of course, from our grant funders, the Tobacco Commission, USDA Rural Development. We've got support from Virginia Tech Food Innovation Program. They can sit down one-on-one with any of our clients and help them develop a product label, make sure that label complies with all the regulations, do product testing. And you've got Sandy Stoneman and myself, who I went through the ServSafe training just so I could have access to that kitchen and be a person in charge if Rebecca can't be there or we need somebody on site. So we've got that backup. And all of these partners, Blue Ridge Small Business Development Center, are on board and they're ready to send people our way. And all these partners working together, we're ready to, take somebody by the hand because it can be intimidating and walk them through all that they need to know to be able to use and access this kitchen and do it the right way. And that's the main thing we want to do is get people using it, but we do that without jeopardizing what makes it special. And so that's what we wanted to share tonight. And thank you all for listening. And that's all I have. Unless you have questions.
Mr. Fan, I believe that's important.
I guess it's for Renee and you, Kevin. I definitely don't want you to compromise any standards, as we try to, because ultimately we want to stay true to purpose, right? That's what it's about. So when you showed the list though of users, we're basically serving ourselves, it's just another conference room for the county, basically. So what do you need, or how can we help? Or what resources do you need to advertise to the population that you just described, Kevin, to achieve the purpose that was why this place was created, which was the economic development? How do we get the word out? Where do you need help? Do you?
Well, I think just your general awareness. I mean, a lot of stuff happens, you all know, it's kind of water cooler talk and things get talked about at the local convenience store. And I think part of what we're doing tonight is just making you all aware. So as you get questions, you can speak intelligently on that. I mean, just consider the fact that as far as the kitchen, it's only been open for use since September. That when we finally got it certified, and that was kind of going into the off season, really. So we're just now getting ready to kick off the time of year when we could really anticipate some uses there. And there's already work in place. Sandy Stoneman, Rebecca, myself, Lindsay have been in discussions about some business development. Mandy Archer was involved in those discussions about how we kind of take some of the obstacles, some of the scariness away. You know, we don't want people like Mr. Anderson coming in there and being scared to set a cookie down. You know, they have to respect the facility, certainly, but they don't need to be scared of it. And I think one of the main things that we have to do as staff is to help folks feel like, hey, this is our facility, and it's not something we got to be scared of. We just got to, you know, there's people here that are going to take you by the hand. Yeah, we're going to tell you at times you can't do that. But we're also going to say, but you can do it this way. And so I think that's the main message tonight.
But are you in need of a marketing? I mean, it sounds to me that, yeah, you're moving into the busy season potentially, but are what to achieve the purpose, are we at the point where we need to start thinking about how do we market this in a way to raise awareness from an economic development standpoint? I mean, is that really what we're talking about?
Yeah. And I think Rebecca's already got some rack cards made. Yeah. So we're ready to roll this out. Frankly, we're kind of slow playing this a little bit because we have some more construction that should be happening in the next couple weeks, month or so, to better secure that facility. We've got to add a new egress out of the conference room. So we can actually lock those swinging doors that come out of the kitchen into the conference room. And we've got to put a new wall between the restrooms and the kitchen. So we can totally lock that kitchen to any audience that might be in the conference room that should not have access to the kitchen, if that makes sense. So frankly, we're kind of slow playing this a little bit until we get that done. And we're hoping that some initial marketing can start so that when that we're ready to throw the doors wide open once we take care of that security issue.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you, Ken.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, we moved on to next item on the agenda, which is old business. Public Works trash collection options at site. Mr. John Looper.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Last one was really fluorescent yellow.
People looking at you. Thank you. We were tasked with by the board there in January to come up with some solutions to the problems that we have had out there at the Public Works Department. Met with some of them in the community, and we did come up. We started moving the bins after they're full, or after they're collected, and start moving to the other side of the building. And I'm still waiting on some privacy fence and some of the net and fence that put up on that, on the gates and on the fence around that area, just that area, not the other part. That's two of the things that we've been working on to do. One option that was bounced around was moving it to the other side of the building. And with that option, it'll only work if we have limited access to that lot. It basically limit the access whenever it's not being used for trash. Once the public learns that that's where they're supposed to bring it. If they have open the gate, they're going to bring trash. So we can't have someone bringing trash 5 days a week for that area. So that's some additional costs there. If you see that cost, just what we've talked about, with the power, put the power into that area, and because we don't have that capability coming out of the building, and that for those openings, and the openings themselves, that cost would be diminished because we are planning, if this is the option that we choose, we're planning on public works doing the work on it. So that will reduce it a lot. We're hoping. That's basically what we came up with, was that option. If that is something we take, I would like to be able to add to that a little bit and put some pedestals for our trucks to plug into it in the winter months, so we can keep those trucks, the engine heaters running on them, so that we don't have to run drop cords everywhere to get a plug truck plugged in. So but that's not included in this. So it's a twofold thing if we can do that.
So when we started down this road, I mean, one of the big issues that I think you foresaw was the amount of traffic coming in there off 21. VDOT was starting to have some concerns about that. Is that proven to be, I mean, that sounds like still an issue because we're still at that, we're still doing this, providing this service. Is there any thoughts on how to address that?
Well, that was the issue of moving it. Maybe it would move it down the road just a little bit. That's one of the concerns that they have.
You say down the road though, do you mean
to the other entrance?
To the other entrance of the existing entrance, just on the other side?
That's just on Saturday.
Yeah, that would be on Saturday to the other entrance.
Wouldn't be feasible on Wednesday.
Yeah, we're in there on Wednesday during the day, so we can't. I don't want to put the liability on my guys or anybody, even the public coming into that area on the day.
No, I'm not asking you to. I was just making sure I understood. Yeah, I understand. And then, but right now, your vision of how to keep this sustainable is keeping it at that location. So even though we might continue the service, you think if we, and we are, you don't see providing that at a different location?
I'm open to that. I am open to that. If we could find an additional, a better location, a more central location for other parts of the county, where people in the whole county could use it, not just right here, I'm all for that. I think that's a good option. We just run out of places. We didn't have any places. We couldn't find a place.
Right. So on that note, if you give consideration to extending the hours so people from the other ends of the county could get in there?
Well, there's plenty of room there's plenty of time for them to get there.
Well, if it's on a Wednesday and you live on far end of the county, it's quite a trek to get there. You know what, it closes at 12. So if you extend the hours, it would be more available to people on the outer skirts of Independence, I guess you'd say. That was one thing that we discussed in the meeting when we voted to open it back up. Did you guys put any thought into that?
Well, I don't see the need for that, because if it's from 8 to 12 on Saturday, there's still enough room for people to get that many cars to come through. I mean, you know, whether it's on Saturday, if they're not going to bring it on Wednesday, if they don't have time, they can bring it on Saturday morning. And there's plenty of opportunity for them to put it in there, even though it's real busy.
Well, my thing wasn't that they have too many cars. Like, that wasn't what I was going at. What I was going at was, if it's open later, it provides more opportunity for people to come to use it. So if being on the outer skirts of the county or outer skirts of Independence, if we extend the hours, which is I think what we kind of bounced around at the last meeting, then folks would have more access to it. And if it's on Wednesday, you guys finish up at 3 or whatever time, I can't remember. And if the hours is extended, then that might be part of the plan. I don't know. I just wonder if any thought was given to the extension of hours.
I would like for you to consider, how do we reduce the volume? Ultimately, it's a volume problem. I mean, we're already going to everybody's house. People choose to bring it there. That's great. That helps you to some degree, but we're still taking a huge amount of trash to the landfill. And so as part of this review, the next phase, I would like to see a discussion on how do we help people reduce the amount of trash thrown away. Because ultimately that landfill is ultimately going to fill up, and it's ultimately coming back to Grayson County. So the longer we can keep it in Carroll County, the better off we are. All right. And so if there's ways to do that, that reduction in volume translates into reduction of operating costs for you all into the county. So that's kind of where my head is on that. I know we've talked about how profitable may not be the right word, but a positive revenue flow, cardboard, and how much that stuff's being thrown away, but it could be, that's a big volume reduction. So again, we're talking about marketing in the previous presentation. We can get behind some ideas of how to educate people on ways to reduce the volume so that ultimately it translates into savings for everybody.
On that, where we changed the originally when we closed it, we moved the plastic to outside, and we still have the plastic ones, there at that facility on the outside.
Right.
So there is a little bit more recycling coming in.
Good.
After this action. So I agree. Anything we can recycle, we need to.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman. One other thing that Mr. Luther was good to not he's not trying to help himself out, but every Saturday night or Sunday morning, currently with operation without these gates and motion sensors and all, he has to go up and get this bin moved over to the other side of the building. With this action here, he would be able just to have his operator that's not able to operate a truck, just to cover it up with a tarp or whatever. If we move to the other side of the building, it would not require him to have to do that every Saturday night or Sunday morning. We could just leave it there and cover it up, and that can be managed by the person that's there.
All right, well, thank you very much, John.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks.
Next, we have a feasibility study for the Sheriff's Department.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Several months ago, we asked the sheriff to work with us to try to look at doing a feasibility study to help project his personnel needs, how they operate, sort of an overview of how they should be moving into the future, and ask him to look for folks that would provide a feasibility study to give us some guidance on that and give him some guidance on that. And he came to the board and recommended a group that, and we have submitted that information to you for review during this week. We think it's a good company and a good comprehensive feasibility study. It's $5,000 to do the feasibility study. We would recommend to the board that we give him permission to move ahead and start getting that feasibility study completed.
And he was going to fund that through funds he already had, right? It wasn't
On that note, entertain a motion. So we have a second. All in favor, signify by aye. Nay. 4-0 vote.
Thank you.
This next portion of the agenda, the new business, is something very dear to my heart. And have a proclamation to honor Rixie's Market. And I can say that the fondest memories of my childhood, my grandfather and my family, they were raised up on the South Creek side of Buck Mountain. And my grandfather would take us up to the mountain, old home place when I was a kid. And it generally ended with a trip to Rixie's Market, which was a big deal. And my grandfather would bring us in there and get us a bottle of soda pop, some nabs or something. And we always had a good conversation with Ricky. And like I said, very special part of my childhood memories. And Mr. Shepley, with that, I'll leave you with the presentation of the proclamation.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to echo that. And I've told Ricky this, but I lived in Cary, North Carolina before I took this job. And we would come up to stay in we have a little mountain home up here. We'd stay in the mountain home and explore Grayson County. And one of the highlights for the kids that would come with my son was to go to Rixie's Market. And it's a very special place that is totally different than what people can access in the city. You know, all the city stores are chains, but this was a unique place that the kids would, I mean, as soon as we would start driving up there and bringing the teenage kids with us, they'd be, when are we going to Rixie? When are we going to Rixie? So even though it hasn't been since my childhood, but it's been over the last 20 years. And I want you to know how much we've enjoyed your store and you and all that you've been able to provide for the community. And I'd like to read a proclamation for you. Proclamation of the Grayson County Board of Supervisors in recognition and appreciation of Rixie's Market. Whereas the Grayson County Board of Supervisors recognizes the value and benefits Rixie's Market has brought to Grayson County, and whereas it is with extreme gratitude that the Grayson County Board of Supervisors acknowledges the commitment put forth in continuing to make this business prosper for the good of our community, and whereas the board feels strongly that your investments in Grayson County have been and will be a mutually rewarding experience for both your business and our citizens. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Grayson County Board of Supervisors would like to extend our sincere and utmost appreciation to Rixie's Market and Ricky Anderson. Now therefore be it further proclaimed that the Grayson County Board of Supervisors officially congratulates Rixie's Market for 64 years of service as a member of our business community, adopted March the 10th, 2022 in Grayson County, Virginia.
We'd love to have you up here with pictures. Can you make it up there?
Yeah.
Should we be just right here, folks? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to big guys in the
One job I'm real glad to get to do. I love you and your family. Y'all mean a lot to us.
Work both ways. That's the thrill of my life. I think a lot of good for me.
Yeah.
Of course, I guess grew up in it. I was second generation almost.
Yeah.
And then son Andy grew up in it. He's probably the third generation, but it just came to the point that just couldn't get enough help to do it. I hated to. I can't do what I used to do.
Let's give her a big smile.
A lot of good friends back here and all. I appreciate y'all.
All right, 1, 2, 3. All right, good picture.
All right, 1, 2, 3.
Good memories, Ricky. Good memories.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you.
I'll be paying for it tonight, you'll be paying for it. That was a lot closer.
Next item is Mount Rogers School kitchen items.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there are some kitchen items at the Mount Rogers School that could be destroyed as we go through and remove the new part of the building. And we received a letter. I'd like to read that letter to you. Dear William Shepley, at the suggestion of Miss Tracy Cornett, I write this letter requesting that the county authorize the Mount Rogers Fire and Rescue Department to enter the Mount Rogers combined school building to remove several items from the old kitchen. Specifically, we request that the county donate the warming oven and the stainless steel table and countertops to our organization. It is our intent, if this request is approved, to move these items to our fire and rescue station in White Top to improve our food preparation area that is used for the 3 festivals we sponsor each year. We have had plans to make upgrades for over 4 years, but have not been able to generate the excess funds needed to move forward with the project. If you approve this request, our organization will provide the manpower and tools needed to remove the items and will do so in accordance with any instructions you provide. I look forward to receiving your decision regarding this request. Sincerely, Ralph Norris, Fire Chief, and Ronnie Richardson, President. And we have spoken to our attorney, Mr. Steve Durbin, to ensure that this action is within the bounds of legality. And what he has expressed to us is that this could be a charitable donation. So do you have anything you want to add to that, Steve?
I think you said it all.
Looking back, Providence School and the Oak Creek School were donated to those communities, our agencies, and that just keeps in line with that. And spoken with Mr. Ivy, the Wilson District representative, that would be his wish. Also, that request.
I'll make a motion to transfer the equipment.
Second by Mr. Elvis. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed?
Great, thank you.
Next on the agenda is surplus county administration and public works.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have several items for surplus. The county has a 2007 Jeep Commander with approximately 155,470 miles. Transmission, it has transmission issues, rusty frame, and it won't pass inspection. The VIN number is 1469. Public Works, you want me to just go through all of them and then? Okay. Public Works, 1997 Jeep Cherokee, 153,300 miles, will not pass inspection. Water pump issues as well. VIN number 3247. 1998 Jeep Cherokee, 197,726 miles, will not pass inspection. Suspension issues as well. VIN number 6218.
Do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion to transfer the.
Okay, second. Okay, that's good.
Has the school kind of said, no, we don't want this part of the automotive stuff, or have we asked?
We've not asked on these because they're in such bad shape.
No, there's no value in anything for the
Even
school.
if they did work on the pricing, the frames are gone.
Yeah, I just didn't know if there was something that they could pull out to use, but okay.
potentially gov deals or just getting,
Good deals.
Good deals.
Mr. Looper take care of.
Okay, all right. So, answer everything's good. All right. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? I also aye. Thank you. Next, we have large item 2022 schedule, large item ticket.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Lippert asked us to announce those dates, and March 21st, Monday's regular collection route. April 4th, Tuesday's regular collection route. April 25th, Wednesday's regular collection route. May 9th, Thursday's regular collection route. May 23rd, Friday's regular collection route. All large item collections begin on Monday of the scheduled week. On June the 6th, the town of Independence and town of Freeze will have curbside service. All items must be placed at curbside by beginning days listed above. Then there's, the requirements, and I'll be glad to read that if you would want me to. But
that's fine. This will be posted on the county website.
Yes.
Just informational item that requires
Also advertised in the paper.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Let's see. Now it moves to state of emergency.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I am really happy to be able to reach this point that I could come to you and make this suggestion that we put the state of emergency in place. I believe it was March of 2020. So it's been 2 years since due to the COVID virus, and so recommending we have a resolution here that would remove that state of emergency if you all should decide to approve it. It's been worked on together with our legal counsel. So with your permission, I'll read the resolution. Resolution of the Grayson County Board of Supervisors ending the local declaration of emergency due to the spread of COVID-19. Whereas on March 17, 2020, the county's Director of Emergency Management issued pursuant to Virginia Code Section 44-146-14, a declaration of emergency in the county due to the spread of COVID-19 and the resulting COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas the Grayson County Board of Supervisors confirmed or ratified the local declaration of emergency on April 1, 2020, and found that the COVID-19 pandemic constituted a disaster within the meaning of Virginia Code Section 15.2-1413. And whereas cases of COVID-19 and hospitalizations due to COVID-19 have declined and continue to decline in the county. And whereas various vaccine options are now widely available for those seeking immunization against COVID-19, now therefore be it resolved that the Grayson County Board of Supervisors hereby ends the local declaration of emergency declared due to the COVID-19 pandemic, adopted this 10th day of March, 2022 in the county of Grayson, Virginia.
Any discussion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, we have a motion before the board. Do I have a second? Second. Okay, a second. Opens for discussion. Mr. Frank?
So how does this affect us now? I mean, we got some ability to do some things, distant meetings, Zoom in, those type of things. Now that this ends, what effect will it have on our ability, to operate? Does that make sense? What I'm asking? We were able to do long distance meetings as a result of the state of emergency. I don't know if we end this, does that change that sort of thing? And do we lose some flexibility that we had gained because we had the state of emergency? Not advocating to keep it, I'm just asking.
To the extent that we have a continuity of local government ordinance in place, repealing the declaration of emergency would end the continuity of government procedures. You do still have, under the Freedom of Information Act, some flexibility for remote meetings, remote participation in meetings, provided there is a quorum present. physically. So you can still do that. So if someone's ill or traveling, and provided that you have a policy in place to allow it, you can still have members participating remotely, as long as I said, you have at least a quorum present, and that the person who's participating remotely can be heard by the public at the meeting.
Right.
So that's one option.
Okay. Yeah, I think our policy that we put in place a while ago allows us to do that sort of remote stuff, given those conditions.
Yeah, I believe you.
Okay.
Cover that, put that in place.
Okay, so we have a first a motion with a second. This will be a roll call vote. Mr. Anderson? Aye. Mr. Finn?
Aye.
Mr. Bell? Aye. I also aye. Bishop?
Mr. Chairman, I want to thank Paul Boyle for his leadership that he provided to us. He didn't know that he was coming into this, but he'd only been on just a few months when all of a sudden the COVID-19 hit, and he rallied a core of volunteers that just went the extra mile. This county should be proud of those people that stepped forward and gave of their time and their skills to help protect the citizens of Grayson County. And I'm so proud of what he did and what those volunteers did and what the whole community did. And I want to make sure that we recognize Paul and those volunteers for all their hard work, keeping us safe. Thank you.
Navigating some difficult times. Okay, next on the agenda will be board appointments. On the Board of Equalization, that is the Wilson District seat. Mr. Rixie is unable to serve.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, several hours ago, Larry Bolt gave me this letter and asked me to read this to the board. March 10th, 2022, Mr. William Shepard, Grayson County Administrator, Board of Equalization appointment. Currently, we are waiting on the Board of Supervisors to appoint the 5th member to the Board of Equalization for the 2022 General Reassessment of Grayson County. Hopefully that final member will be named at tonight's meeting. However, if that does not happen, I am asking you to ask the board if they will conclude that this year's Board of Equalization will only have 4 members. The already named members include 1 from each district in the county, so I believe the 4 members would be fine. As it stands now, we are probably looking at their meetings to be held toward the end of May and June. Therefore, it is imperative that by the end of tonight's meeting, we have finalized the Board of Equalization members. We just simply cannot put this off any longer. And one of the things he said was he needs to get them through the standard training that they have to go through, and he has to schedule them for that. And I promised him that I would let the board know about his request.
I guess in the absence of Mr. Ivy, Supervisor Warren.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to 2 or 3 different people, thought had some nibbles, but no one took the bait. So I'm kind of out of slits, as I used to say. So I don't have anybody.
Since this is a unique issue, you could just go ahead and, do we have a motion to just entertain a motion to have 4?
Yeah, I'll make that motion that this year's Board of Equalization only comprises of 4 citizens.
Do I have a second? Okay, any discussion?
Yeah, do we know if Mr. Ivy has somebody, was he asked prior to this meeting?
Yes, he was there.
Okay, having the motion before the board with a second, all in favor signify by saying aye. Also aye. 4.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next, moving on to the Board of Zoning Appeals, Mr. Ron Davis, that's one of mine, and it looks like he's willing to continue. Is that correct?
Yes. Make the motion to reappoint.
Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. I also aye. 4. Next, moving on to the Economic Development Authority, EDA.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We've reached the end of that 1-year period that the members of that board served. we've asked the members that are currently on there if they want to continue. Some have indicated to us that they do want to. In addition, we've had some formal applications come in beyond the time that you received, that your board packet was sent out, that we would like for you all to consider. So what our plan is, it looks like we'll have at least 9 candidates for 7 positions. What we'd like to do is to submit those applications to you for your review and have you come back into the April meeting with hopefully with an approval of at least 7. We can have all 9 so that we can move forward and start continuing with the what we want to do with the EDA.
Mr. Fagan?
Do you know?
Yes.
Has anybody said, who are the ones that said they're willing to continue to serve?
Chris Butler,
Okay,
Elizabeth Hash,
okay.
Justine
Jackson Ricketts.
yeah. Joe Killen.
Okay.
And then we've had interest from, do you want to go through the ones that are interested?
No, I'm just curious of the ones, and then we'll see the applications. In the
yes.
Yeah.
Now, Gary Rasco has indicated that he's kind of on the fence. He's trying to decide whether he thinks he can be more effective focusing specifically on white top issues and things that are happening there, or whether he can be more efficient on in the EDA. So he hasn't made a decision yet. I haven't heard from Lisa Blevins. Who am I missing? Linda, is that it?
That's it.
Yeah.
One of the questions, so if we delay reappointment of any of these or this thing till April, what's the operational impact? Is there anything that's cooking that?
No, but there's a significant surge forward in what the EDA is going to do amongst at least the people that have indicated they want to continue. If you all decide you want them to continue.
Okay.
So nothing would happen between now and that time.
Mr. Chair, I think when I got the packet, I saw that these folks' terms had expired. So I contacted the administration to find out who is in my district. I think I had a conversation with John as well, to see if those appointments would be folks in the Elk Creek district. So at the time of not knowing people were going to continue or had expressed an interest, I had talked to other folks who were interested in. Those are the applications.
That's right.
I talked to a few, but I don't know how many. Do we get
One of
2
them,
or 3?
We have 2.
Okay.
Mr. Butler would be in your district.
That's what I was under the understanding.
He's in Providence.
Is he?
Because his Eagle View's in one district and his home is in a different district.
But the EDA, although we want a representation across the county, there's
Doesn't require it.
there's
Not district.
There's not district.
That's right.
It's more of a capabilities versus
Yeah.
geographic. That's right.
Entertain a motion to table till next meeting. Everybody have an opportunity to look at the application.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, do I have a second? Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye. So aye. 4-0.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is just a county administrator's report.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to remind everyone of the country music event that is occurring in April, and is it April 4th and 5th? Linda? First and second, okay. April 1st and 2nd, and if you saw the article in the paper on it, which was really an excellent article, this is quite an extensive event, and these folks have put a lot of time and effort into it. They're really students of old time country music. I think this is going to be something that is going to really, it's going to be an annual thing that's going to happen, and they're going to try to focus on different people from Grayson County that have helped in the creation of old time country music, because we are, like, in a lot of ways, the birthplace of what they're going to be focusing on in here. And
this is the Legends of Grayson.
That's right. Yeah. So I wanted to remind everybody about that. I wanted to let everyone know that wasn't there that we had a really successful ag banquet, awards banquet, and Lindsay Young and her team did an outstanding job in making that into a successful event. I think we had over 120 people there. Is that right, Linda? Yeah. So I mean, I think the audience stayed through the whole thing, and so I think it was exciting to recognize all that's going on here in the county. It was very eye-opening to me to hear about people passing farms down for centuries and multiple centuries in a couple of cases, I believe. So really pleased about that. And let's see, the next thing I want to talk to you about is I wanted to give you an update on CenturyLink. There were several counties that have joined together to try to petition the SCC to take some action because of the terrible customer service that we've been getting in many other counties throughout, not just Southwest Virginia, but actually throughout the state of Virginia. So I've got a brief update for you on where it stands right now. The State Corporation Commission, the SCC, held a hearing on Wednesday, February 23rd over concerns over CenturyLink customers in rural areas of Virginia. Literally dozens of counties throughout Virginia were able to express their concern at this hearing. A link was posted on the Grayson County Facebook page to allow citizens to submit their concerns as well. Buckingham County Supervisor Jordan Miles spoke at the hearing and included Grayson County's overall concerns and disappointment in service in his presentation. This was part of an agreement between all the counties that were participating to have a spokesperson, and it was asked for by the SCC that rather than have each county say basically the same thing, that they have a central spokesperson that would list who the counties are that they're representing. Over the course of 2 days, the same issues with unreliable service, poor customer service, and public safety concerns were shared by everyone that participated. Everyone is pushing for the mission to have this hearing be successful in putting pressure on CenturyLink Lumen to ensure better service going forward. So we will monitor whatever reaction is going to occur at this point. If there's any, if there's not, we'll have to readdress it again, because this is as you all know, a very serious problem that endangers lives in our county, and it has to be taken care of. So I think it really helped us to discover that there were other counties doing the same thing at the same time, and the SCC seemed to be very receptive to trying to take some action on this. So it's been 15 days so far, so hopefully something will happen within the next couple of weeks. I'll keep you updated on that. I have some information to share with you on broadband. Let's see. So we have, as of February 28th, segment 8 from Volney to Fairwood, 7.1 miles is 50% complete. Section 11 from Skyline to Galax, 3.43 miles is 19% complete. Segment 12 in Independence, from Independence to Freeze, is that right, Carl?
Yes, Riverside.
Okay, is 25% complete. And we know that everyone in this county is excited about getting access to broadband, and we're doing everything we can to try to move that process forward. We are pushing our provider to speed up the process, and what they have done is they've hired a group called is it LeadCorp? LeadCorp, to help them to make this into a reality. They started working in Grayson County on subcontract on March the 8th, and we're being told that we should see more of them along the first three segments. And the GigaBeam has requested 25 plus drops at this time and hopes to see these folks connected in the next few days. Right now, GigaBeam has equipment for approximately 60 more connections. supplies for more have been on back order for a while due to the supply chain problems, but they hope to have that modified in the next few days. We need it to go faster than it's going. So we are going to be continuing to meet with the leadership of Gigabeam, along with our partners at Appalachian Power, to try to smooth the way to get this done much more quickly so that everybody can have access to, that wants it, have access to broadband. So that's where it stands right now. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, I just think on that report, what's not highlighted is the county's phase one, which is the wireless section. That's the Briar Patch, Hines Branch kind of area. And so we need to push Gigabeam on what are we doing with that? Because right now that report was about the fiber, which is really important. That's going to serve a lot of folks. And I'll just say publicly, APCO has just been super as a partner in getting this thing done, and they're right on track. But we need some effort on the non-fiber side, on the wireless side, to try to get those customers connected. So my hope is if he's got supply chain issues with the fiber equipment, that the wireless side should be able to now get some attention and get it done while he's waiting to solve some of these other problems.
Yeah,
So
that's a great
I'll
point.
ask you to kind of address that with me.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Sure. That's it.
All right, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Next items are informational items. We've been provided registered speakers and public comment.
Are we dealing with the programs and projects? I have a couple of questions. Again, the informational budget actual. budget.
Are you referred to programs, projects, and updates by Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Did you have a question? you
I
wanted to ask?
did have a question.
Okay.
And it's concerning the Bakery project. I came over there last week, and after we approved the 1.4 million, and my understanding, we got a little less than 400,000 set aside for this phase one. So my question is, and was, where are we getting the difference for that project?
It's coming from several sources. Ms. Gahar, would you like to tell them what we've discussed this intensively? So would you like to relay that to them, where our anticipated access to those funds would come from?
Sure. I'm sorry, I'm not prepared, so.
My intent.
But we do have a community development fund that is part of our fund balance that has over 300,000 in there. We will, by the end of this fiscal year, we will have over 400,000 in the actual project fund. We have some set aside in community capital improvement. Of course, that is to be shared with other projects that are ongoing. So we have almost $1 million. The other 400,000 we are seeking actively and aggressively seeking grant funding for that.
So is there been an increase in that original bid since the 1.4? I understand because of the inflation, the cost of materials. Can you tell us?
Sure, it went from 1.46 or
$35,000.
yeah, it went to 1.5.
Okay. And my next question along those lines, who is negotiating the lease with Tri-Area?
That would, who individually?
Who's negotiating the lease?
The county would be doing that as we move forward with it. So yes.
Is there an individual?
The county and our legal counsel and Tri-Area.
Is that those were questions that I had.
Sure.
And I was deferred to the project planner. I don't know his exact title, if he's the planner or if he's the consultant. And he was asked to be here tonight. He agreed to be here tonight when I asked the chair to add him to our closed session because we could ask more detailed questions. But it's my understanding, somebody I guess is advised differently. It's not allowing him to be here tonight. I don't know the circumstances of why he's not here, but I understand there was a meeting earlier today, and he was discouraged from, I'm guessing, I don't know, because it wasn't privy to the meeting, from being here to answer these questions. And the first meeting we had, he was scheduled to be here and was asked not to be here. So it's just raising a lot of red flags, a lot of concerns that I have towards this project. Because as we're in this economy and this stuff just keeps increasing. And like I know that part of the bid, and I don't know the details, but what are we gonna do with the sewer? If it's in front of the building, we're gonna put a new parking lot around there. And that's not part of 1.5 million. There's a lot of added costs that's getting ready to come in there. And maybe someone here can answer this. We were told we needed 3-phase wiring to be brought to the school. And what's the added cost for that? Is my understanding that wasn't in the bid.
Yes, I'd be glad to address all that.
Thank you.
I spoke to Bill Sturgill, who's the project manager who reports to me. He indicated to me that he had no intention of coming to the meetings, and asked me that he said that he would be glad to come if I wanted to come. And I said, I have no reason for you to need to come. We did a long discussion, and he wants me to share with the board if it's okay with.
Well, I would like to add something.
Sure.
I have a text from him where I asked him if he could come, and he said, sure, I can be there. And I said, we've got it on. I talked with the chair. I said, we've got it on the schedule. And I texted him then, because I gave that to him. I told the chair, we've got this. You know, so he agreed to come.
Okay.
So something's happened between the day he agreed to come and address the full board in closed session. Something's happened from that point, or actually from 1 o'clock today, I guess. I don't know what transpired today, but I just wanted to make that clarification, and I've got the text right here.
Well, let me be clear to you that I just told you what happened. So there's not anything mysterious.
No,
I simply talked to him on the telephone.
Right, but when you said that
and he asked me, did he need to come? And I said, no, he doesn't need to come.
Excuse me, but when he said, you said that he had no intention of coming. When I asked him to come, he was intending on coming.
He said he had no intention of coming.
Well, I've got the
That was
text right
not,
here.
that's
It's contrary to what you're saying.
Okay, Mr. Shipley's made his statement, you've made your point, and so we'll move on. I have not, and I'll clarify as far as the chair, I have not had a conversation. You said he was willing to come. I'm imagining you extended the invitation. As chair, I do not have subpoena.
No.
Abilities
I wasn't.
to enforce someone to come or invite, that was, you said you had him coming, so
Well,
I haven't had the conversation. I fixed the opportunity for you.
Right. My point wasn't that I wasn't pulling you into it in that context. My point was when I was communicating with you about adding this to the closed session, he was on that very day, and I've got the text. He agreed to come. He said he would come and speak to the full board and answer these questions. Because the previous, when I had met with Mr. Shipley to ask, I had a list of questions. And instead of getting a list of answers, I got a list of people to contact to ask these questions. Mr. Belton, you were one of those. When I was asked about the ATCO or the wiring that's being the 3-phase wire. I was under the impression you would have that answer. That was what I was led to believe. I'm not trying to pull you into this. I'm just saying that was the conversation that we had. So
Well, I think
these
if this, without making disclosures, I think the matters which you're addressing were to be discussed in closed session. So I guess you choose the public forum to do that, but
no, there will be discussed with the planner, the project planner, who's not going to be in closed session. That was the purpose of having the closed session, was to have the project planner come in and address the full board and answer the questions. My point is, he agreed to that the day I talked to you. Since then, somebody's called him off of that. He didn't come today.
He called himself off of it.
Okay.
well, okay, and that's point made. Each one's made their state.
Mr. Chairman, would you, since we were going to go into closed session to discuss this, I have quite a bit of information that shows really the lack of knowledge of what's being said here that would counter what's being said, that I'd be glad to either share here or whatever way you would want to handle that.
Well, I think now the cat's out of the bag, but I think I prefer we follow the agenda.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. No one was asked to request the supervisor's time. And at this point, we do hold on the agenda a closed session to discuss personnel matter. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Let's get myself because we're got a little sidetracked here. Okay, going back to public comment. Thank you all. We have two speakers that registered to speak. Ms. Pam Carpenter. If you wouldn't mind just stating your name, your address, and comment be limited to 3 minutes.
My name is Pamela Carpenter. I live at 341 South Independence Avenue in Independence, Virginia 24348. Earlier this week, I got an application for a board appointment that I was interested in that contained a question pertaining to criminal convictions. I called Ms. Osborne at the county administrator's office and asked for a revised application as the conviction question has been unlawful in the Commonwealth since July 1, 2020. Ms. Osborne said she needed to speak with Mr. Shepley. I said she should also talk to the county attorney and provided the relevant code sections to Ms. Osborne on the phone when she asked for them, because clearly Googling this for the county is my job. I received a revised application this morning before business hours. Violating this section of the code is a class 1 misdemeanor, comes with punishments of not more than 12 months in jail and a fine of not more than $2,500. But this does mean that every time this application has been sent to anyone since the law changed in 2020 has opened the board to legal action. Any applicant that received an application from the county could have pursued legal action against this board, and my tax dollars would have been used to defend county employees against criminal charges that arose from nothing more than ignorance of law and failure to operate the county in compliance with the law. To put that in context, if the board has sent out 500 applications since July 1 of 2020, and each of those was prosecuted and fined at the max rate of $2,500, that would have cost the taxpayers of the county $1.25 million. Failure to keep the county, it's just not okay. Failure to keep the county in compliance with the law demonstrates a lack of respect for the laws of the Commonwealth and a breach of fiduciary duty to the citizens of Grayson County. I've worked extensively in reentry initiatives, so I knew about this law, and it's a very important issue to me. Removing these questions from the application is mandated by law. It is not a request, it is not a suggestion, and this board is required to operate in compliance with all applicable laws. It isn't a mistake that can just get glossed over. It is a crime. Which brings me to Mr. Smith. I contacted the Deputy County Attorney months ago to request a copy of the feasibility study on the Baywood project so I could inform myself prior to the vote on this issue. I also contacted multiple members of this board. I was advised by Mr. Smith during that conversation to submit a FOIA request. When I asked why I couldn't just come view the public copy, he said he was well within the law to require me to submit a FOIA request. It is appalling that the laws of the Commonwealth are being ignored by this board and by the county administrator, yet wielded like a child who's found his dad's gun when it suits their agenda to deny citizens access to information or to conduct government in sunshine. So the laws being broken here are just, it's a display of negligence and it's a display of incompetence. It's not okay. And just as a note, I did submit a FOIA request months ago. I have never received a response, nor have I received a feasibility study. My timing's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, appreciate it. Next, Pam Cox.
There's nobody else here.
Okay.
I'll check that one.
You check everyone else. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, as I stated earlier, there's no one who's requested time during the Board of Supervisors section, and so that moves us to closed session to discuss a personnel matter pursuant to 2.2-3711A1 and for consultation and briefings by legal counsel, consultation of staff members pertaining to actual probable litigation or other legal matters pursuant to 2.2-3711A7 of the Code of Virginia.
Mr. Chairman, if I could offer one correction to that, as far as consultation with legal counsel. Typically, when I make my way down here, we're talking about litigation, and so A7 would be normally the one that we would use. In this case, it's general consultation on a specific legal matter, so it's A8.
A8.
And specifically, it would be consultation regarding advice from counsel concerning an economic development project.
Okay. Let the record reflect that. A8. Okay, take about, we need a motion to go and close. Well, let's, I tell you what, take about a 5-minute break. And at this point, entertain a motion to go into closed session as stated prior.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
This board is now in closed session. Time will take